Donald Trump has just announced an additional 25% tariff on all imported cars. And the corporate press says he is ratcheting up the trade war. This will be interesting. He also announced there's going to be the opening of a bunch of auto plants in the country, namely in Indiana. So it seems like things are working. We're also seeing these viral posts where liberals are getting angry because prices are coming down. Uh-oh. Gas prices are down. Egg prices are down. Come on, guys. Isn't this the way it's supposed to go? Now, Canada, we got this report that they're laying off hundreds of workers in the steel and aluminum industries because of the tariffs. And this is why they were whinging, because they think that they deserve to do business with us to the benefit of Canada. Well, Trump is saying, I want the American people to do better. That's what we're getting. So let's talk about that. Should be interesting. But also, that signal story won't go away. There's more developments. But I'm going to double down on, my view of this, that I think the Trump admin likely knew what they were doing for a variety of reasons. We've got a viral video showing a woman, a pro-Palestinian activist, having a couple guys grab her. We don't know exactly what's going on, but guys in hoodies grab her, saying they're the police. And the assumption is this is immigration picking up U.S. visa holders who are here in support of Palestinian causes. That story and stories like it have disappeared from the news cycle, largely because the only thing anyone's talking about is that a signal message leaked. Should be interesting. We'll talk all about that. Before we do, my friends, we got a great sponsor. It is Home Title Lock. Go to HometitleLock.com. Use promo code TIM250. Click on the link in the description below. Do you guys know that scammers can literally steal your home right out from under you? The FBI calls it house stealing, and it's a growing real estate scam targeting American homeowners. Here's how it works. Criminals forge your signature on one document, use a fake notary stamp, pay a small fee, and file it with your local recorder's office. And just like that, your home title has been transferred out of your name. Then they take out loans using your equity as collateral, or even sell the property behind your back. And you won't even know what's happening until you start getting collection or foreclosure notices. So let me ask you, when was the last time you checked your home title? Well, it actually says, if you're like me, the answer is the answer is the first time I read the script and then realized it. And that's exactly what scammers are counting on. They're counting on you not actually checking. That's why I trust Home Title Lock. Their $1 million triple lock protection helps you keep your home and equity safe. Here's what you get: immediate 24/7 monitoring of your property, urgent alerts if there are any changes. And if fraud should happen, their U.S.-based restoration team will spend up to $1 million to fix the fraud and restore your title at no additional cost. And here's the best part. We're teaming up with Home Title Lock to give you a free title history report so you can find out if you're already a victim and access to your personal title expert, a $250 value just for signing up. So again, HometitleLock.com, promo code TIM250. That's HometitleLock.com, promo code TIM250. Get the protection and peace of mind you deserve. Additionally, head over to castbrew.com, buy some coffee. Ian's Graphene Dream is back, baby. He's already sold, 400 bags, I think. Seamus should be offended. He sold 300 in one day, but I don't know that we have enough in stock because it's still sold out. So it was a small batch, but we've got more coming in. I don't know how you do it, Ian. I don't know how you do it. My friends, don't forget to also smash that like button, share the show with everyone you know. If you really do like the show, sharing really does support our work the most because that's how podcasts grow, word of mouth. You can follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. Joining us tonight to talk about this and so much more is Sharyl Attkisson.
Hello. So good to be here. It's been 3 years or something like that.
Yeah, well, who are you? What do you do?
Why am I here? Said Admiral Stockdale. You're too young. Never mind.
Too young, I guess.
Well, I'm the host and managing editor of the Sunday TV show Full Measure, which is going into its 11th year next fall. And unlike the other news organizations we're seeing on ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, depending on where you live, unlike other news organizations, our viewership is going through the roof this year as we continue to bring sort of underreported stories and off-narrative stories. And I have a new book, Follow the Science, How Big Pharma Misleads, Obscures, and Prevails.
Well, right on. Should be fun. Thanks for hanging out.
You have an X account? I was looking for it.
I do have an X account, Sharyl Attkisson, and a Substack that I'm starting to get pretty active on.
Awesome. Good to see you, man. It has been a while. I'm back as well. Ian Crossan in the house, and I'll tell you how I do it, Tim. I'll tell you how I sell that coffee. It's with love. And I figured out, according to the Greeks, there were 8 types of love.
Oh, okay, here we go.
Yeah, there's erotic love, there's love of family,
we
there's
get it.
friendship, there's love of self. I do it with all of them.
Someone suggested we make a T-shirt of that and all of our coffees. It's actually a really good idea. So instead, it'll just be the actual art. So you'll have the Ian floating in the middle.
Ooh,
Yeah,
that's
that
a
seems
chakra. Let's steal coffee for every chakra.
Okay, Ian.
Okay, Tim. Love you. Hi, Phil. How you doing, baby?
I'm doing all right. Hello, everybody. My name is Phil Labonte. I'm the lead singer of the heavy metal band All That Remains. I'm an anti-communist and a counter-revolutionary. Let's go.
Here's the story from ABC News. Trump announces 25% tariffs on imported cars, ratcheting up global trade war. They say that major stock indexes closed down on Wednesday. I love that because it's not related to the news, but the corporate press always has to make sure that everything Trump does is wrong. So they're going to include that subheader. Quote, I think our automobile industry will flourish like it hasn't before, Trump said. The auto tariffs are set to target a sector that employs more than 1 million U.S. workers and relies on a supply chain closely intertwined with Mexico and Canada. Tariffs placed on the auto industry risk raising car prices for U.S. consumers, experts previously told ABC News. I despise these people so much. I don't want to start swearing right away, but I could not hate the corporate press more. I could not hate them more. This is not a news story. This is an opinion piece meant to make you hate Donald Trump. A news story would say Trump announces 25% tariffs on imported cars. Here's a quote. End of story. Instead, every opportunity they get, they inject some stupid nonsense about how Trump is bad, and it's bad for you. The reality is this is good for you. It's good news. It's going to make your cars cheaper. It's going to give people jobs in this country, and it's going to cut off the freeloaders who've been mooching off us. Man, the corporate press really gets me going. But to be fair, I'm the one who chose that news story.
So they're saying that all imports, like with steel or rubber or anything that are coming from other countries, are now going to be charged. Is that what this, like, what's going to get tariffed here?
The cars.
The cars themselves.
The cars themselves.
Cars.
So the idea is, let's take a foreign car manufacturer. I'll use a random one. We'll just make up a fake one. We'll call it Crossland Cars. Okay. And they manufacture in China. And the company has a base of operations in the U.S. They make their cars in China, ship them here, import them, and then sell them to the American people. So they're using slave labor in China to make the car. Slave labor, like they're getting paid nothing. They have no health benefits. There's smog and smut everywhere, and they're walking off their buildings in mass suicide. Foxconn, you get the point. You can't compete. The American worker can't compete with that. So these companies are like, we pay $5 an hour. If we were going to hire these people in America, we have to pay them $50. It's too expensive. Trump says we put a tariff on those cars. As soon as if that company tries to bring those cars in, they're going to have to pay 25% extra to import it. So that's the American base of operation paying for it to come in. But these are companies operating in foreign countries effectively, selling to the American worker, extracting our labor force and our manufacturing base. What happens now is this 25% tariff will do 2 things. American auto manufacturers now get an opportunity to compete. They now have a 25% margin to work with because they're going to say anything you make your car for is going to be more expensive by virtue of the tariff. So if we can't lower our prices below a certain amount, so put it this way. Let's say a Chinese car costs 10 grand. An American car costs 15. The American car manufacturer says it's impossible to get that cost lower. By putting a tariff on those cars, maybe not 1,500, but let's say 1,250. It now evens the playing field for the auto manufacturer in the U.S. because the Chinese manufacturer has to increase their cost to offset the cost of the tariffs coming in. They claim the cost is to you, but when it allows American companies to compete, this actually can bring prices down because the foreign manufacturers are forced to lower their prices. More importantly, it will create more economic activity, more people who have work. There will be a greater volume of cars sold from the United States with more people who have jobs. That's how costs come down. They're lying to you. They are evil, and they want to destroy this country's working class.
And President Trump, I interviewed him a couple of weeks ago, and he admitted what he would rather have of the two is not the tariffs if it would simply just produce more jobs here. In other words, if both sides drop the tariffs because they've been tariffing us without us equally tariffing them back, that would be fine if they would drop the tariffs and just have more cars built here. He said he'd rather have the jobs here than the money, but he said the money's good too.
Cheryl, do you have the sense that if Trump's plan it works out, do you think that the effect is going to be, that there will be a return of jobs, or do you think that it's going to be something? Do you think it's going to end up actually kind of harpooning the economy?
Well, I'm not an economist, but we already have trillions of dollars of promised economic activity here in this country since Trump was elected as a result, in part of the tariffs, maybe not entirely. Some of it is simply because he got elected and they see a better environment. But there is some direct activity linked to the tariff announcements already, which is what he predicted. I don't see how that's a bad thing. Now, one thing I questioned him about, is there going to be a period of pain in the short term because there will be belt tightening that has to be done or an immediate impact before the job and impact is felt here, because it's going to take time to build factories and so on. He pushed back on that and said, no, he thinks that the economic benefit will be felt almost immediately, because even as they're building the plants, that starts almost right away.
That was actually going to be a follow-up. Do you think that the economic activity that's going to be spurred, do you think that is going to take effect in time to protect the Republicans in the midterms?
Gosh, that's a great question. No idea.
Yeah.
No idea.
They're looking at, like, Chinese company wants to sell in the U.S., so they're going to have to either raise their prices, which means that American car companies are going to be relatively cheaper, which means they're going to get money, and then that's going to enhance American companies. Then they'll hire more people, build more plants. That's going to happen over time. Initially, China is going to be like, well, if we stop shipping our cars over the U.S. because they're screwing us with tariffs, we lose $700 billion. If we just now charge more and we have to eat that cost in loss or in expenditure, we'll make $500 billion. So it's like,
also consider this. You're right, but also consider this. Let's say a car costs 20 grand in the United States and their margin is 10%, and China makes a car for 15 grand, sells it here for 20 grand, matching the market price of American-made cars. They get a massive margin where they're extracting profit by using cheap labor. Putting that tariff on it will strip their profit margins down.
I guess there's a concern that if the Chinese manufacturers raise their prices to keep up with tariffs, then the American companies will also raise their prices to keep up with, because they can.
Other way around.
What?
The foreign companies will not be able to compete with cheaper American products. So the idea with 25% tariff is that the foreign product needs to cost more than the American product. And then that basically they're going to have to drop their prices to compete with us. So if it ends up costing them more to make it, they're not going to raise their prices. This is what the left keeps saying. They're just going to raise the prices and pass it to the consumer. No, it isn't. Take a look at our coffee company. So if we have Kona coffee made in Hawaii, and it's $10 a bag, and then someone imports from somewhere else for $8 a bag and makes a $2 profit, they still have to compete with our cost. So if their price goes up from the tariffs, they either stop and we sell all American, or they have to keep their prices down somehow to compete with the American costs that are already low.
And they won't stop. It's a huge, huge sector of their economy, I imagine. They won't stop. They have to continue to compete. Like economics, it's not about your emotions.
I got to be honest. I don't even care if the cars end up costing more money. You know why? Because this just means we're going to get our auto manufacturing base back in Indiana and Michigan and Ohio. And it means that, if remember the documentary from the 90s from Michael Moore about the shuttering of these auto plants?
Yep.
What happened to those people? Now they're sitting here screaming that Donald Trump's the bad guy when he's trying to bring back that middle-class life Americans used to enjoy. Now you've got Gen Z. They can't afford a place to live. They can't find any jobs. The jobs they can find pay dirt. Imagine this, Gen Z. Donald Trump does this. Next thing you know, an ad pops up. Auto manufacturing job paying $60,000 a year, entry level, or $40,000, $50,000 entry level. Now you have a chance to get these jobs. It's going to create competition in the American market. It's going to create opportunity for Americans to have these jobs. Trump's deportation, all of this combined is going to raise the standard of living for the American people.
I feel like it's also a time in history when it's a good time to revitalize your national industry because of the materials revolution we're going through with like subatomic, discoveries, graphene, obviously, hydrogen fuel. Like we could really, even a new car company and a new American car company that is like hydrogen, graphene based, if they could get the cost low, that's the opportunity that we have right now.
Here's a problem, though, that I think you guys talked about before we went live here. People don't understand tariffs. I'm not saying I understand better than everybody else, because I don't. But I think their eyes glaze over, and they're being fed by most of the media a one-sided story, really, about what all this means without anybody explaining it to them in the way you're trying to do. And they're not getting a full picture of it. So they're going to associate anything bad that happens economically in the next month or so, for sure, with this threat of tariffs, when that may or may not be to blame for anything that happens.
But all that matters is I would probably say September of 2026. That's all that matters.
All that matters
Trump could literally do anything. Well, not literally, but he could do most things right now and get away with it.
Just so long as the economy is okay in 18 months, well,
September.
12 months from now, 16 months from now, just so long as the economy is okay, then the Republicans have a shot in the midterms. And if the Republicans actually do well in the midterms, then the president gets to continue his agenda with, at least not a hostile Congress that's going to try and impeach him every chance.
Don't you think Republicans weirdly underperform, though, in recent history at times when they should excel, when we're looking at what they ought to be able to do in Congress?
Absolutely.
What about,
Is it?
I mean, we won. So here, one issue people keep bringing up is the census issue that overcounted blue states in 2020. And that's going to get corrected in 2030. And we're going to see a massive shift in terms of electoral college votes and congressional seats. So it's going to get real interesting after 2030. So that midterm, I don't know if when the census actually kicks in for districts, but Ezra Klein basically lays it out. Bill Maher lays it out. Democrats, it's game over. They're never going to win again.
Oh, I heard that the
so long
party's splitting. Have you guys heard much about that?
Oh, they're fighting. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, I mean they're
It's like a tea party coming out.
Yeah.
Of the Democratic Party.
Yeah, they're fighting each other. My favorite was, we talked about this yesterday, that cat Abba Ghazaleh, is that her name? She's got a keffiyeh on her wall in Illinois' 9th district, which has the highest density of Jews in Illinois. So all these people are coming out being like, she keeps talking about, she's a progressive, she's going to primary the incumbent Democrat, and she's like, I'm not going to use a consultant. We don't need any of these grifter class consultants. And it's like, lady, you needed one to be like, you are trying to run for Congress in the densest Jewish population in Illinois, and you have a keffiyeh behind you. Her dad's Palestinian. I don't think she can win, but I certainly hope she runs. I hope AOC props her up. I hope all of the squad and the left progressives prop her up, because it will make all the moderate Democrats recoil and run to Donald Trump.
I'm open to seeing like the slithering, vestige of whatever that Democratic Party had become, kind of fade away, because it was just big bureaucracy controlled. And I don't even know if most of them even realize that they've been part of that. But, inevitably, I'd like to see it fade away. Whether or not, like, what's coming next, I guess that's a big concern.
Biggest thing, they let the opportunity slip away during this transition where so many people on the traditional left started to merge with people on the right when it came to COVID issues. They still differ on key things, like RFK Jr. may not agree with a lot of conservatives on environmental issues, but on issues that they have deemed to be now more important and more impactful to their families, they have come together. And Kennedy wanted to work with the Democrat Party, as you know. A lot of these Democrats who've broken away wanted to work with the Democratic Party and were rejected, or the fate might have been totally different if those forces had joined on the left instead of on the right.
Do you think that that's going to be a phenomenon moving forward? Because we talk about the kind of the civil war that's happening in the Democrat Party between the actual progressives and the far left. And Tim was talking about some polling numbers that said the very far left and the 30% want to keep it what they're doing. Some think that the Democrats didn't go far enough, but there was a significant portion, probably a third, that thought that they went too far, and that was why they lost. Those people seem not ready to, come over to vote for Republicans yet, but with the historic unpopular situation that the Democrats have, is it your sense that that's going to be something moving forward? Or
I think it's a problem for them. The doubling down, I mean, that's a legitimate position for some people to take, that this is our true purpose and this is what we ought to do. But that's starting to look more and more fringe, and they see that they have, Republicans have peeled off important support because of that. And I think that's going to continue. I was getting calls on C-SPAN the other day. They have, I don't know if you know, a Democrat line, Republican line, and independent line. They take calls. The Democrats sounded like Republicans when they were calling in and asking about media issues and the things I cover with the health and science stuff. And everybody sounded like they were almost on the same page. And it was more on the middle leaning to conservative side, even these Democrats who were calling in. So I think that's a bad signal for them.
I mean, back in the 80s, there used to be conservative Democrats, and there were Democrats that would actually be conservative, at least by their standards. I don't think that that's out of the question anymore, is it?
Well, I just think they're feeling more and more alienated if they are. Yeah.
I'm
course it
serious.
is.
I'm wondering if the Democrats that don't want to be associated with the far left are going to quit, or are they going to become
did.
like the blue dog Democrats like they used to be?
Manchin quit. Joe Manchin.
He's not the only one. Kristen Sinema is fairly
into-
moderate, and she didn't quit.
No, she quit the Democratic Party.
Did she quit the Democratic Party?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't.
A long time ago. Yes.
Really?
Sinema, was it like two years ago she quit?
There's a desire to want to
Bro,
stay and
Jeff
help
Van
it.
Drew quit.
But like,
If you're a Democrat and you are trying to be moderate in any way, you cannot win. You cannot win.
they have super delegates. It's so crazy.
Well,
that
that's
they
for
can
presidents.
override
Yeah, that's for
and
president.
control their candidate.
That's for president. We're talking about everyone else. Let's jump to this story from the New York Post. Hundreds of Canadian steelworkers hit with layoffs as Trump's tariffs squeeze the industry. How's it going, Canada? What are you going to do about it? You do not get our business for free. That's just it. If the Canadians came out and they were just like, Trump, your tariffs are totally fine, thank you and have a nice day, I would have been like, that was very honorable. Instead, they got all hissy and pissy, threatened to cut off our electricity to the areas that use electricity, in the northeast part of the country, and they wanted to make it a big thing. They were slighted, as if they deserve our business. Well, this is what you get, Canada. This is what I've been talking about. So we've got at least 200 Canadian members of the United Steelworkers, North America's largest private sector union, lost their jobs thus far, according to Marty Warren, the group's national director. And Canadian companies have not been shy about placing the blame on Trump's stiff tariffs, a 25% levy imposed on all steel and aluminum imports. I'm going to say this. I feel bad for anybody who loses their job, but Canada, if you lost your job because you were dependent upon American business, that was a mistake on your country's part to put everything on the line in terms of an international negotiation. You had no guarantees. And the American people have been exploited and are fed up, and they said, we're not interested in this anymore. We need to manufacture our own steel, our own aluminum. So why would we give those jobs to Canada? Now you guys have no jobs anymore. That was you getting sold out. This is Trump correcting and taking care of his own people. Maybe your country should do the same for you.
And he's doing this in part not because just of steel and aluminum, it's over the dairy tariffs, something like 260% in Canada that they're marking up if you want to sell milk, apparently. And the way we can get them is getting them with something they want to sell here in the U.S. What I don't get is, what's so controversial about that here in America? It's not as though we're rolling in dough. We have a deficit and a debt and so many needs going on here. To say that we deserve to make sure that we're doing the best economically for our people and we're doing these reciprocal tariffs or inviting businesses to do more manufacturing here, what's controversial about that?
I think people don't understand the level of debt. I think it's just kind of like the wool's been pulled over most people. Like most people don't know there's a U.S. debt clock where you can watch the 36 trillion just go up, up, up. And we've over 100 years, well, actually since 1949 CIA after World War II, they basically created America as the tit for everyone else to get their milk from, and no, in the British Empire, like in this whole Five Eyes organization, and we basically, it's just been accepted, and people have now become accustomed to it. What's that?
Do you know why?
Well, the Federal Reserve was very easy to siphon money.
I mean, you mentioned after World War II. Do you know why the United States kind of became like...
Because it was the strongest military?
Because it was because of nuclear non-proliferation. Because the nuclear arms race, the United States didn't want to see every country in Europe all getting nuclear missiles, because that would make a higher percentage chance of a nuclear war happening.
Yep.
So the U.S. said, look, if you don't go after a nuclear arms program, we will protect you. That's the whole point of NATO. So it wasn't like I mean, I know you talk about like the global economic order and stuff like that, but it was, the most of it was, we don't want the world to blow itself up because of nuclear weapons.
That was, I think, the American military aspect of the situation. But
NATO.
The economic aspect was they made America like the bank for all these other Commonwealth countries.
The economic aspect came after.
It was called the liberal economic order.
But
is what they created.
It came after NATO. NATO came first. They started building bases. They said, look, don't develop nuclear weapons. We'll build bases. We'll protect you. We will take care of you to make sure we'll defend you from the Russians. And the response after that was then you had economic interest. You had companies deciding, okay, well, we can go into these places because they're secure because the United States military protects them.
But also, Canada now gets a huge discount from this country as it's being siphoned off. And one, if they violate NATO, they don't no longer get the American money. So there's all these incentives to stay on board with this ethos of the liberal economic order, and you're going to keep getting money. And Trump comes in and he's like, I'm done with this. I'm done with this. We're not.
Let me just give you a simple argument on the tariffs thing. Donald Trump says to Canada, very simply, we think our business is worth more. Instantly, they lay off 200 workers. I think that shows that there was an incongruence between the markets, Canada and the United States, and then they were getting a freebie off us. If Donald Trump can go and say, we're going to charge you to sell your product in our country, and that destroys your business, I think that just says it was an unfair arrangement from the get-go. If the market actually made sense, you'd be like, okay. But the reality was America doesn't need it. And so I'll put it this way. Donald Trump wants American steel back. The Steelers in Pittsburgh. Remember that? There's no steel in Pittsburgh anymore. Maybe a little bit. Trump wants to bring those jobs back and give Americans good lives. We sold it off at a discount rate to China. I'm sorry, to China and Canada. And Trump just said, you're going to have to pay more. And instantly they're out of business. We were getting ripped off.
Well, here's something just in simple terms. We've had leaders that for decades have been telling us, the American public, as we're rowing a kayak toward a waterfall, that we're never going to hit the waterfall. And we're just gliding that way. And no one has the strength or the ability to explain to the public or the desire that hard things need to be done so that bigger things can happen. And the reason is they're all getting paid. Republicans and Democrats alike are getting the donations from the industries to make sure they don't do these things. And it never gives you votes hardly if you cut spending.
It costs you votes because if you say, no, we really do need to do something about our deficit and deficit spending, then you end up with people saying, oh, look, they want a real throw grandma off a cliff, the Paul
and
Ryan
it takes a lot
commercial.
of, morality on the part of a political figure and not just short-term thinking, of course, but they have to think short-term in a way because they have to get elected every 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, or whatnot. So,
yep. No, I think the problem for this country is that if you were to be honest in politics, you'd lose in 2 seconds. You'd go up and you'd say something like, guys, if we continue at this economic rate, we are going to be bankrupt. This country will collapse. We need harsh economic reforms. This is going to lower the GDP by X amount of percent for the first 2 years. After that, we'll see stability. After that, we may see a recovery. People are going to say, nope, don't do it. Because most people would rather say, give me the short-term gain. I don't care about the long term.
That's what this is in Canada, too. This entanglement of trade that we've found ourselves in is being disentangled. And the result is people are dependent on it. Like normal people that don't think about politics, they're just used to going in and making steel. And now they're losing their... So there is like this short-term, and this is what short-term pain literally is people losing jobs.
Do we have any
These are Canadians.
steel
I don't care.
manufacturers in the U.S.?
I mean, I generally care about humanity in general. And like if we have international entanglements, like that is we're somewhat responsible for. I care, but I care, long term, we have to think at least 20 years ahead if we're talking about economy.
There are indeed.
Yeah, okay.
There's U.S. Steel, there's Cleveland Cliffs Steel Dynamics, CMC, Gerdau North America, JW. There's a lot. There's a lot of steel companies.
I read somewhere that a lot of the steel manufacturers left the United States, and I'm not sure where I heard.
I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of these companies are actually just importing from Canada or China or Mexico. And so they're American companies, but they outsource the manufacturing somewhere else and distribute through the United States, which is short-term gain, long-term losses. But here's the best part.
It's almost like we don't even need them, but we've been doing them a favor by buying their stuff, at an elevated rate at the expense of our own people under the idea that we need to help.
Full on siphoning American money to the British Empire, man. I can't stand it.
The funniest thing about this is the left should be cheering Trump on, 100%, because the outsourcing of jobs, and they used to. Remember the battle in Seattle? Remember that one? Remember that one, Ian? The battle in Seattle, 1999?
No, quickly tell me.
The World Trade Organization protests. Leftists were upset about the U.S. cutting deals, much like the Trans-Pacific Partnership. What ends up happening is the CEO of a big company and its shareholders say, we can increase our profit margins by 10% if we outsource the jobs to Mexico, where we don't got to pay healthcare benefits. The American workers get fired. we make a bigger profit. It makes the rich richer and the middle class poor. The left was protesting this. Today, they're protesting against Trump's, they're protesting for it.
If Trump had run as a Democrat and done these same initiatives, but run and won as a Democrat, would the Democrats be behind him now?
Well, I actually, there's a thing that we talk about, like if Donald Trump had, if the Democrats had approached Donald Trump and basically stroked his ego,
He absolutely would have run as a Democrat.
he would have done anything they wanted.
And they would have won.
Yeah.
Democrat 2016 Trump on the same exact platform, because he shared a lot with Bernie Sanders.
Yep.
If he ran this, he was pro-gay marriage. If he ran on that, and Hillary Clinton wasn't, if he ran on that, the Republicans would have had who? Rubio? Jeb Bush?
Yeah, Jeb Bush.
And then he would have won. And the Republicans would have nobody right
It's
now.
a big if because they have superdelegates, and they probably would have been like, Hillary Clinton's our candidate, everyone.
Right. We get that. But we're saying if they approached Trump and said, but that was the problem. Hillary Clinton, it was her turn. Trump's only move was as a Republican, also because of the sentiment of Occupy and Trump being a billionaire. With Bernie Sanders as a left populist, no populist is going to elect a billionaire. On the right, however, the right populists were like, Trump's right. He knows how the machine works. It's benefited him. He's going to fight for us. The left just says millionaires and billionaires are bad.
It's interesting to think if he had run as a Democrat and they groomed him to be a Democrat, if he would have just become evil, like become part of that machine. But they didn't get to him early
very
enough.
much the same. He's not changed. If you look at him over the decades, he's not changed a lot about anything.
Could you imagine Trump today, like if it was inverted? In 2016 he runs and he's going, I just think sometimes a man is a lady. Sometimes a lady is a man.
Thinking a lot about it.
He literally, I just retweeted. He was making remarks from I forget where he was, but he was making remarks specifically saying, "You'll never be a woman if you're a man. It doesn't matter how many operations you get." I just retweeted that just before the show started.
When was he saying that? You mean
Today,
Oh,
like
okay.
this afternoon.
Well,
It was 17 minutes ago. I retweeted it. It was from 4 hours ago. Breaking 911 put it up.
I hope you guys are ready for this one, because the United States is going to go back into the Commonwealth. That's right. The United States will bend the knee to King Charles, apparently. Donald Trump suffers MAGA backlash over Commonwealth proposal. Hell no. So Donald Trump suggested he could accept any potential invitation from King Charles III to join the Commonwealth. Has led to one fan to warn, you will lose 95% of your support base. I mean, the left hates him already. He would lose everyone else. The whole country would be unified.
I don't even know what he meant, because he couldn't have actually meant, yes, the United States.
I don't
would
even know
give
what they're
up sovereignty.
offering. I don't get it.
It's an honorary position is why he would consider it, because they're not officially becoming a parliamentary, we're not going to get a king because of this. If you go in the Commonwealth, you could very easily end up with a king. So
Alex Jones, I've got a message for Donald Trump. If you really try to make America join the British Commonwealth, 1776 will commence again.
It's shocking, like King Charles. So Alex Jones went on to say, like, maybe Trump's going to troll this guy, like have the king come over to the United States, sit in the Oval Office and be like, yeah, we're not joining the Commonwealth. Welcome to my house. Like, could be something like that. Trump's probably like has no idea what he's about to do. And it's like toying with the idea. And when he hears people complaining and being like, you better not even consider putting this country under the authority of the British Empire. And he'll step back.
He will not. He will not do it.
He will not.
Trump kind of just says stuff sometimes. I
He
think
likes to be provocative.
Yeah.
He likes to do,
But I wonder how much of what we're seeing with all these stories is just Trump manipulating the press. Like, seriously, Trump could, if there was a negative story about Trump, he could just fart and story's gone.
I like about him that he'll say crazy stuff like this and think about it. Like, just because it's a bad idea doesn't mean it's like wrong to think about it and to voice it. He thinks out loud a lot of times. I like that about him, actually. That he, like, God's a 51st state. What other crazy stuff? Oh, making Canada a state, making Greenland. I mean, at least he's outside the box.
Maragaza.
Maragaza. Could be beautiful. Beautiful. So, but it's up to us to keep him in check when he says really, really bad ideas. We got to be vocal about it.
He's an ideas guy, right? Sometimes you got to throw him out there, and then people say, "Yeah, we're not going to do that one."
Mm-hmm.
But what I like about the conversation is he's a big ideas guy. You look at, he's right about a lot of the stuff with the Panama Canal. I didn't know what was going on. We've had reporters go down there for my show and try to look into it. He's right about some of it, but I would have thought the answers were sort of like, oh, let's negotiate so that they don't raise the fees so much, and let's work with them on not letting the Chinese get so much control. And he's all about, let's take it back, like the big idea. And it may That may
Can I-
not happen, but the conversation gets going.
Just take a look at this, hard to see because Bloomberg's website sucks. Look at this beautiful picture. Look at this absolutely
cartoon.
beautiful image. Oh, shit. Wouldn't you want to just hang out there
Yeah.
in these beautiful homes? Yeah, that's Greenland. And Trump says, it must be ours. Trump insists the U.S. must own Greenland as Vance heads there. So we don't need the British Commonwealth. We need our own Commonwealth. We need our own Greenland.
It's another big idea. Who would have thought?
It was funny because I guess Joe Rogan, I don't know. Whenever Joe Rogan has a thought on something, the media reports it as like a headline story. I guess they're bored, but we love you, Joe. And I guess he was saying he doesn't care for the Canada's a 51st state thing. Look, if Donald Trump is actually serious about Canada being the 51st state, I'm not for that. I jokingly said we're going to seize it, and I got more death threats than I've ever gotten. I don't actually want Canada. It's cold. I don't mind it for vacation to get poutine and go up. But Greenland's a different story.
Canada had a revolution, and the people were like, we want statehood, we want First Amendment right, we want American constitutionalism. Like, I would support them, but I don't want any kind of like military seizure of British territory.
Would you join the volunteer force to fight in the War of Canada?
No, I would be an information guy. I would
I don't know, man.
Move data.
I wouldn't have any interest in anything to do with Ukraine. But if there was like a calling all support, we're taking Canada, I'd say, what can I do? I'm kidding. The Canadians are going to kill me.
Well, I mean, the Canadians I don't think so. I mean, it's a genuine conversation. You know, the idea of United States isn't insulated to this landmass. The idea of a bunch of states that are united could be global. It could be solar. It could be multiplanetary.
You know what the actual name of Mexico is?
United States of Mexico.
Indeed it is.
Yeah. And so just extrapolate that idea, like localized governance is the way to go. So you have
It sounds so crazy when you first hear these things, especially if you're not read in, like I'm not sometimes. But he was talking about Greenland his first term. It didn't get a lot of coverage. He was talking about doing this during his first term.
Yeah.
And there's a method to it. There's a reason, strategic reasons that look pretty important that make it look pretty smart.
Greenland it's Denmark that actually
Kingdom of Denmark.
Yeah.
But we already have a lot of authority there given to us in a military sense.
That's because Denmark can't take care of it.
Right, we're responsible in part for their security. We already have presence there. They already rely on us in part for some things. There is a relationship that
We
exists.
actually had to take stewardship of Greenland during World War II because Denmark couldn't protect Denmark from the Nazis. So instead, and we couldn't have the Nazis building a beachhead on our side, in our hemisphere.
So
the
we're
United
still
States
responsible for their protection right now.
The United States is the entity that keeps the entire North American continent safe, right? So we talk about Canada. If you look at what Canada's military is actually comprised of, it is a joke. It is an absolute joke. They have almost nothing. They rely entirely on the United States for their defense. And the same thing goes for Greenland. The reason Greenland doesn't get taken by Russia is because of the United States. And anyone that says anything different is lying to you.
You know, that is interesting because now that I think about it, it's like the defund the police feminists and leftists. They don't understand that their ideology can only exist in a state that keeps you secure.
Yep.
If there was let's say the United States didn't exist and it was just a landmass, feminism wouldn't exist. There'd be barbarian gangs on motorcycles going around taking what they want. There would be small pocket communities that were run brutally. If we ever saw an actual economic, governmental collapse, it's going to be the most brutal guys who take over. But because of the police and because of our system of laws, which protect the rights of everybody, feminism and the far left are able to exist in the system. Canada is a good example of this. If the United States didn't exist, Canada wouldn't exist.
Absolutely.
Canada, I hope you hear this. If the U.S. wasn't a psychotic war machine and there was literally nothing here but a spattering of states, Canada would be occupied and taken over. And someone else would come and claim the landmass. Canada's fringe far left garbage only exists because the U.S. won't tolerate anybody going near Canada.
Like right, this is a meme that it's just a picture that I'm looking at that I'm going to retweet right now. But Canada's active military, they have 1.9 active military per 1,000 people. The U.S. have 4. Canada has 375 aircraft. The U.S. has 13,209.
They have
Canada
375?
375 aircraft. Naval destroyers, Canada has 0. The United States has 75. The United States has 64 submarines. Canada has 4. The United States has 11 aircraft carriers. Canada has 0. Canada has 74 tanks. The United States has 4,657. There is no competition between the United States military and Canada. The reason Canada is a free country is because the United States wants Canada to be
almost free. Look up King of Canada. Like, search it right now. King of Canada. It's Charles. Like, he's their king. And
if you compare the British
military,
military,
Ian Crossland.
Well, I will be one day.
If you compare the British military to the United States, it's not quite as laughable, but it's still laughable.
Britain has no military. They're like, I mean, not no military. Britain has a military, but they have insignificant compared to the United States, along with what you're saying. And Canada's part of this.
The United States military is larger than all of the rest of NATO. All of the rest of the country, all of NATO combined.
You know what? I love this. Do you know what the largest air force in the world is? Do you know who?
U.S. Air Force.
Do you know who has the so who has the largest air force? It's U.S. Air Force.
United States.
Do you know who has the second largest air force?
U.S. Navy.
That's right. That's awesome. I kind of love that about this.
I love it. Absolutely.
I think it was that they were the largest. If the U.S. military was a corporation, it would be the largest polluter on the planet because there's just so much hot activity in the ocean, just dumping all day, burning.
Keeps global trade
up.
possible.
Yeah.
If the U.S. Navy wasn't patrolling the seas, pirates would take everything. Absolutely. I mean, come on, let's be real. If you got a cargo ship, like if there wasn't for the U.S. Navy, there would just be pirates literally everywhere, and these ships would be armed to the teeth. And a lot of them are, actually. But it's wild to me. You ever see those videos where the cargo ship just sprays water on these guys?
Yeah.
The speedboats are pulling up, and they blast them with water. They turn on the thing, and water sprays off the sides, and I'm like, okay. I saw another video. You saw the one where they unload on the pirates?
I've seen a few of those.
There's the viral video where the pirates are coming up and the dudes are just going like, bam, 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 just shooting at them.
Apparently, there's a Russian tourism. This is I heard this yesterday. Was it on this show? You guys might have talked about where you can pay like $15,000 to go get on a Russian boat and sail where there's pirates, and if they come, you're allowed to open up.
No, what?
This is what I heard.
Seriously. It was, I don't know what the show was, but it was Mark Cuban that was someone was telling Mark
Your Mom's
Cuban.
House with Mark Cuban.
Yeah,
it was Christina Pajitsky and Tom.
Pirate hunting cruises.
Hilarious.
Russian luxury yachts offer pirate hunting cruises from 2009. I don't know if it's real, but there you go. Wealthy punters pay $1,500 per day to patrol the most dangerous waters, hoping to be attacked by raiders.
What the? Would you do that? I mean, that's a question they asked Mark Cuban because they'll fire back. You're not like
they're going to be fine.
You're going to have superior weaponry.
That's terrible, man. I mean, I don't understand why you have to pay to go stop evil people.
I know. It's like the inverse of hiring mercenaries.
They figured it out. They were like, guys, we got a pirate problem. We don't got to hire people to deal with it. Let's get rich people to pay us so they can go deal with it. That's kind of creepy. I got to be honest.
Freakish.
People who would pay money to go ride around in boats to shoot at people, I suppose
the Russians, man, that's a hard people over there. What are you going to say?
I suppose it's better than them murdering people or whatever.
It's an interesting philosophy that people that want to be vigilantes bad enough would pay money to a government to go hunt their enemies.
That's creepy.
I mean, is that even a government?
Let's jump to the story, my friends. Ladies and gentlemen, we have breaking news. We got him. We got him. The morbidly obese man on the four-wheeler who rammed the Cybertruck. We got him. It's finally over. Man on homemade four-wheeler caught purposefully ramming parked Teslas. Yeah, more than one. Here's the video.
That's a woman.
No, that's a guy. That's a guy. That is a man.
He's definitely got a lot of estrogen flowing through his system.
Look at this.
It's just an opinion.
Damn. Look at all that inertia.
I just don't get it, man.
He's giving himself a concussion while he's doing it, too.
So his name was DeMarcayun Cox, and he's been accused of purposely ramming and damaging several Teslas across the city on March 25th. Apparently, he didn't realize they have security cameras when none of these people do. Dude, this is really weird.
People are stupid.
Is it have people always been this stupid?
Honestly, I really mean this when I say it. This is mental illness. The stuff that you're seeing, these people are mentally ill.
Like just corroded brains from dietary and stress and stuff.
Have people always been this dumb?
No, I think we've got a serious mental health crisis related to drugs and bad food and all kinds of stuff the last decade or two.
You know, this is like 20 years ago. I was hanging out in Chicago, and I was having this like philosophical debate with a friend, and we were talking about like NPCs. This is kind of crazy that it became a meme later on, but like solipsism and things like this. And I was like, dude, there are some people who are just not real. I swear, because either they're just too dumb. And then so I asked random people on the street as we were talking, are you sentient? Not a single person said yes.
Did they say no?
They said no. They all said no. All of them just outright no. And I was like, are you joking? Like, come on. I was expecting for them to be like, yeah. And we were at a college, so it's not like people are going to say, people don't know what you mean. No, I was like, we were outside of DePaul University. I just genuinely think these people, there's no lights on upstairs.
I guess they call it intelligence for a reason, because it's actually something. Like it isn't everywhere. Like it's a unique phenomenon when someone actually has it.
Do you think that if we asked these people, do you have an inner monologue, they'd all say no? Or would they say, what's that?
They would say, what's that?
Yeah.
I honestly
like you don't
think
know
they'd be
what
like,
you don't know. Yeah.
It's like, well, if you don't have one, I'm not sure that telling you would actually help you understand it.
Some people think in like images. Some people think in sounds. Some people think in words. Some people just don't really think, I guess.
I can't imagine thinking.
Some do what the voices tell them to do.
Right. I mean, I can visualize things, but I'm constantly like kind of walking around muttering to myself or like thinking out loud, talking to myself. So I can't. So anytime I think ever, it's in words. I can't imagine thinking only in concepts or not having the ability to think in words. And
I think in pictures. Do
you?
I think so.
Like you picture something happening?
When someone's explaining something to me, I'm putting together a little movie in my head. And if there's a gap, I stop them and have to make them fill that in so I can continue the movie and understand it.
That's kind of how it is with me. And then there's like color, which is like warm. Like there's a temperature of color around the imagery happening. Like the jacket will be like a brighter red that's warmer, indicating like a feeling, like an emotion. That's kind of how I visualize.
Do you feel like that's an asset? My sense is that would be an asset when you're doing interviews.
I just thought that's how everybody sees it, because you don't really analyze it yourself until I have heard other people. And clearly my husband doesn't think that way. So when you talk to other people and you realize they're not following the same train of thought as you realize there's...
Does it help you when you're interviewing people?
Probably, because I make people explain things very clearly, and I think that helps.
I think that there's also something called, what is it? What's the word for when people can't visualize things?
Oh, I don't know.
It starts with an A. Aphantasia.
Ooh.
Oh.
Yeah, so I actually think that there's different modes of thinking, and there's probably a bunch of different ones. Some people might think in sounds. They almost hear the sound. You don't literally hear the sound, but you can, I don't know, what's the sound version of visualize, audiolize? I don't know.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, you can.
Some people in their minds hear it.
Yeah.
Some people can think almost in text. So there's different ways of thinking. There's like audio, video, conceptual. And then I think what you end up with is a lot of people who have the most rudimentary, they can't visualize anything and there's no inner monologue. There's probably not a lot going on there.
And that inner monologue is important because that's what'll keep you from doing that stupid shit. Like you need to be able to see yourself in the future potentially doing something and questioning it and be like, hold on, there's consequences. Think about all the possible outcomes of that action.
Edit your actions.
That's it. But there's another component in that people who have the ability to not just visualize an image of things, but to imagine what it could be. So there's remembering something, then there's visualizing anything, which allows you to make predictions of the future.
Consequence.
Right. So you are right about this guy can't think ahead, but it's not just that. It's that he doesn't, because he can't, he has no reason for what he's doing. That's why people like us don't go around ramming Teslas.
Oh, that's interesting. The age of reason. Yeah, that's a big deal. Reason wasn't always part of our norm. Like we kind of are in the age of reason for the most part right now, and there's a big diffusion.
The reason I do, so there's a couple different, there's many different motivations for action. This is pure impulse. Someone told them to be angry. They got angry. They took an action. There's no rhyme or reason. It's just impulse. It's the lowest order of thinking.
That lizard brain, the amygdala.
That's right. Then there's reason, there's reasoning, meaning I think about the action, I visualize what will happen if that action is taken out, and then I decide how to address that circumstance. Sane, rational people do things like start companies and build houses and design trains. Everybody else rams Teslas.
And they also question their purpose. With reason, you're able to think, why am I drawn
Except
to
Sam
this?
Cedar. He can't.
He doesn't question his purpose.
He can't even Google the word.
He doesn't believe
Sam.
in free will.
I just
wonder
had to
about
drag the guy.
Free will? That's a whole other conversation. Free will versus fate. I wonder if
No, he doesn't believe that people have free will. He thinks that people don't actually have free will.
we're all stuck in like an automated system.
He thinks
due
that
to external.
He thinks that that everyone it's kind of predestined depending on your I guess your inclination and whether or not you've had enough food today and stuff.
To be fair, though, I don't care what he thinks because he's not smart enough to Google search basic philosophical concepts. He lacks not just the capability to understand, but the desire to try.
Interesting.
But I don't want to talk about that guy. I was just dragging him.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the guy who got arrested for ramming a Tesla and all the rest of them.
So what happened? Did he get charged with?
Yeah, I think he's getting felonies.
I mean, that's right.
What do they give him? Multiple felonies?
No,
I got to be honest. This video is ridiculously funny. I mean, it's dumb.
Is it playing now?
It is playing.
Okay. Oh my god. Well, that's the momentum.
Yo, we're in trouble as a species.
And the homemade four-wheeler, that's pretty cool.
It's homemade. Mm-hmm. Is that what they said?
Yeah.
Wow.
We always have been in trouble as a species.
Oh yeah, weird homemade four-wheeler.
A lawnmower and a bicycle or something there.
Wow.
It's this.
Look at that.
Gosh, how do you even describe it?
A single felony for criminal mischief and failure to identify. These people are so dumb. Bro, Teslas have cameras. I just don't get it, man.
Who doesn't know that now? People are still keying the cars on camera every day.
I don't.
I think I get Christians get mad when I say this, but I'm like, is it just that not every person is ensouled? Like when you have a soul, you're there and you're present in the moment. And if you're not, you're just like milling about, scratching cars.
There's an interface between the brain and the soul. I think like the neural activity in the brain is electromagnetic activity, and the soul's probably like your magnetic field or has some connection to that. But then there's that interface between the area around you and the energy field and then the actual matter. And then there can be collusion. There can be like diffraction. There can be all sorts of interference. And that maybe is just genetic from birth. Like it just wasn't built to be able to connect to that external source. Or it's diet. It's the way you were beat when you were a kid and you don't want to ever feel that again. And so you're shut off. Your brain just like your neurons just shrivel up and they aren't awakened. I don't know, man. I mean, it's almost like there's multiple species of hominid, and like,
well, there have been.
There sure have been, and like, why not now? Only in retrospect, maybe we'll measure it and be like, actually, yeah, some species just got it and some didn't.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what did happen.
Like, imagine, because I wonder if they even thought they were different at the time. Like the Neanderthals and
there's evidence that Neanderthals and Homo sapiens actually did produce some offspring because people from Europe have Neanderthal DNA.
Yeah. And Denisovans were like these big, tall people from North Asia. There were the little people from the Australia.
Were those Homo sapiens or were
It was called Homo florensis was the little one, and then Denisovan was a hominid also, a big, tall, big guys.
Doesn't 23andMe or one of those, they tell you if you have any Neanderthal in you?
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
but
Well,
they
they're
just got
bankrupt now.
Yeah,
Are they
their
Chinese
information.
owned or something?
I don't know, but all those DNA samples are up for sale, and
Yep.
Dang it.
they plug those DNA samples and all that medical data into AI, and they are going to have a lot of power.
Mm-hmm.
Bro, you plug if they were to take every human's medical data, DNA, and current like blood levels and put it into AI, they'd be able to cure any disease overnight.
They don't want that.
The control they do. They can give to themselves.
Yeah.
So the thing right now with all this AI stuff is we're sitting here making pictures of ourselves fighting dragons or whatever. Like I made the kung fu.
You should highlight that tonight too.
The kung fu thing. I tweeted about it.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
I'll pull it up now, so I can explain to people basically what happened. Let me see if I can find it. There's the bike lock thing. So I tweeted this. I told ChatGPT to make an image of me debating a liberal. I didn't really. I said, make him doing kung fu and fighting a demon.
And you just put a picture of your face or something?
Yeah, so when I do the shows, the screenshots we have the OBS program, and I look at the camera, and then I just hit the command for screenshot. So I look at the camera, hit it, grab it, paste it into ChatGPT, and it was just my head. There was nothing else, just that, and it made that. It made that picture, and that's crazy.
So go on to you're talking about the medical now. If they have this.
So once they get access to everybody's medical information, the AI will see things you cannot.
Yeah.
It's gonna be able to correlate weird things where it's like everybody with lupus has low magnesium. That's like pretty overt. We would notice that. We'd be like, hey, we've gone through all of these different charts of people with lupus. We keep finding low magnesium. That's a really obvious thing to find. But what the AI would find is, hey, every time someone has lupus, they're minus 1% magnesium, plus 2% iron, minus 3% vitamin K, plus 4% vitamin D. And it's like that specific combination results in this form of lupus. And then it can create a pill to balance out all of those problems. And
It could
cure it
also
overnight.
do behavioral stuff, like people that are depressed tend to face north 3 hours a day. And we found that if you face south 3 hours a day, your depression lessens by 27% and like control people's behavior and get people to fall into this.
Has known for a decade when you're going to poop.
Yeah.
Not a joke. Not being funny. Facebook already had the data because they've got 1 billion users, and the computers easily mapped out that every human takes specific actions which show a likelihood of about to go to the bathroom. So it's like within a certain time of eating, within a certain amount of movement, they got your GPS data. There was a story on it like 8 years ago that Facebook they actually knew when a person would go to the bathroom. That's crazy.
What concerns me is if it starts lying. I mean, without being hyperbolic. Yeah, really. Because if they tell you, hey, we have all your medical data, it's such a tried and trusted service, and then they just give you something that's a little.
So here's another image. I took my screenshot and said to make it anime. You want to pull that up, Serge? I said make it. This is the latest ChatGPT update. I mean, it's kind of nuts. It's getting the hands right. That's a crazy image.
That's the best AI iteration of you I've seen so far.
It is ridiculous how good things have gotten. Insane. So I took pictures of my buddies, and I uploaded to ChatGPT, and I said make them into anime, and even the background and everything was perfect. It's nuts. It's really crazy to see.
I was thinking we should do like a promo for IRL, where it's a bunch of us in that genre.
Anime?
Yeah, anime. I don't know. It's like, do you use the tech? You have to use the tech. It's like nuclear weapons. Like if the Americans didn't, it's too dangerous. It's too evil. We can't. It's too powerful. We can't use it. No, you got to use it, and you got to be the best at it.
While we're here, let's get freaky with it. I don't know if I want to go to this one other story first. No, maybe we shouldn't. We'll go to that one next. We'll start with this one. You guys saw that one? Let me see if I can find a better story. All right. This headline's not good. I'll pull it up anyway. Holy crap, guys. All right, here we go. From Hoboken, New Jersey, patch.com. Police chief defecated in office, put Viagra in office coffee, New Jersey cops claim. Several police officers filed tort claims against a New Jersey police chief saying he defecated on the office floor, according to legal paperwork.
What's wrong with you?
Bringing you the stories that matter most.
Is he the guy that spiked Viagra? The chief, or did someone else spike him and then he...
No, this is in North Bergen.
He pooped.
This is like the New York Metro.
Stuck a hypodermic needle into an officer's penis.
This is great. Stuck.
Why wasn't that in the headline?
Spike.
Is that
Viagra?
Everything about this is bad.
Jeez.
What?
So this is like Hoboken, isn't it? No. This is not Hoboken, is it? It's what area is that? It's what is it? That's not Union City, is it? Gutenberg, Bergenwood. It's right next to Manhattan. It's literally across the river. This is basically New York City.
So that's a really influential position to be the police chief of a borough of New York City. How is this guy in this position? Did he just have a psychotic break?
It's right by West New York. Where's Hoboken's further south? Yeah, Jersey City. Man, I used to live right here. That's crazy. I lived in Union City.
There's quote, our clients now genuinely fear for their on-job safety. Job safety. Their clients, I don't know.
I guess after you've been jabbed in the Wing wing, you would be.
What, another cop?
Spiked coffee with Viagra. Attorney Patrick Toscano of Fairfield has requested in a letter to Attorney General Matt Platkin dated March 26th that the state take over the police department in the Hudson County town, saying the officers now fear for their safety.
I would.
Yo, there's photos.
Well,
Oh no.
oh, snap.
Yeah.
What is wrong with him? Someone wrote
I
on it.
don't know if I'm mad or I like the guy.
Did this person have like a psychotic break or something?
I gotta know.
Mental illness is real.
He must have spiked the Viagra so that he could get the specimen in order to inject the thing.
In all seriousness, the point of this story, I've been telling people when all these Republicans come out saying back to blue, this is who you're backing because Democrats appoint these people. These are corrupt cities. The guy who crashed in the Tesla in that car, no different than these psychotic cops that are running these departments doing insane things. I'm not saying all cops are bad. I don't think so. I'm saying the people running these departments are appointed by Democrats who get elected by psychopaths.
Well, he's an appointee. The chief is an
Well,
appointee.
I'm assuming he's an appointee, but in most big cities, the people who run the police department are appointed by the Democratic mayor. So what do you think's going to happen?
Well, probably. Oh, there's my audio. Hearing myself talk about Viagra. What's going to happen? This guy's going to get arrested if he hasn't. He's sure he's been arrested. He's going to get charged. He's probably going to see some time. I mean, if he hurt a bunch of cops, he's really going to get in trouble. It sounds like he terrorized police officers on the job. So
Yeah.
I hope he sees some real punishment.
It's on silent. I don't know why it's doing
You got to turn the volume down, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it's
Your phone's just yelling.
That's weird.
Yeah.
You want to give it up?
This is it's troubling. It's a troubling story.
That opening
So
paragraph.
who supports him or who appointed him? That's the question.
I don't know. I mean,
'Cause this didn't happen in one day. This
No.
list of things.
I mean, he clearly should lose his job.
How did he keep doing this stuff?
Oh, he kept doing it?
You know what's crazy? Remember that cop who banged all those other cops? It was that lady cop?
Yeah.
That story would not go away.
Yeah.
I kind of have a feeling like this story is going to be in the news all the time because, let's be honest, tariffs are boring. Sure, it's going to change your life, but it's boring. So when that lady cop was going around banging those other cops, every outlet was running at front page 24/7. And I was getting frustrated like, dude, I don't care. But the people want what the people want and the market dictates. That's why I'm not a libertarian. They do.
They liked that girl because she was cute. And the idea of her having sex with a bunch of guys, a bunch of probably simps were like, oh, I love this. Oh.
No, they were thinking maybe she'll have sex with me.
Yeah. Maybe share the story. Maybe she'll see it.
That's so creepy.
It's so creepy.
That's
why stories like this take off, though.
Well, yeah. I mean, God, I don't know.
How did this guy not? Oh, whoa! Yeah. What? He's been accused of being a homophobe before as well. Well, now you got big problems.
Yeah, that's going to get the Democrats up and all in the area all up in arms.
we have to follow up on this if we don't get to the bottom today because I got to know what happened to this guy.
Well, they're scared of their jobs. They accuse, what is this? What is this? The claims also accuse Farley of sending a pride flag and masturbation cream to another officer's home, which his family saw, exposing himself at work at random times, and dropping drugs believed to be Viagra and Adderall into coffee. The claim also says one officer's fish were believed to have been poisoned with drugs.
Good Lord. I mean, he's got to lose his job.
Poisoning someone's fish.
I mean, it's not attempted homicide.
Dude,
Is
I'm
it
sorry.
attempted murder?
No.
Someone's going to write a movie about this. It's like Super Troopers. But the guys in Super Troopers were actually not bad dudes.
Because if it happened in a movie, I'd be like, that's just so unrealistic. If the guy walked into the chief's office and he's like bent over the table and you're like, come on, that would never happen. Apparently, reality's stranger than fiction.
Jeez, man.
Like I said, he's got to lose his job. He's absolutely got to lose his job.
But this is the state of liberal cities, right? This is just outside of New York City. I do not understand why people still want to live there.
I mean, I don't.
We need to search who appointed and his name.
And his name is
But
Farley?
like
Is this
outside of this guy, what's his name?
I think it's Robert Farley. Is this the guy? North Bergen police chief? Yeah, Robert Farley.
But outside of this guy, this is New York, right? This is the New York Metro. This is where people want to live. This is where tons of people choose to be. I do not understand. I mean, look, I remember I went to New York for the first time. It was crazy to see all these buildings. And I'm from Chicago. And I was there for like 5 years. And then eventually I moved out of the city and I moved to Union City, which is just on this other side of the Lincoln Tunnel. And I was there for a little while, and I slowly just moved farther and farther away. The more I realized how awful it was. The prices are too high. The laws are insane. The police departments are appointed by psychopathic Democrats. People are planting bombs.
Apparently, okay, so Chief Bergen, or the chief, was appointed by Mayor Nick Sacco on February 1st, 2024, to answer that question.
He's only been there. He's done
Yeah,
all that
just over a
stuff
year.
in a year.
Yeah. And
That's bad.
as for why I live in New York, for me, it was the 90s, and I was from a small town, so there's the excitement of a big city, and of course, New York has all that publicity.
It was also much safer in the 90s.
Yeah, it was big
I
time
lived there in the 90s too, and that's when it went downhill. Right before Giuliani came in.
Oh, that was early 90s, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And it was better apparently when I moved away by the time Giuliani was there, but the taxi drivers when I would go back for work would say everything's better, everything's different with Giuliani.
I got there in 2001. I got there September, right before 9/11, and I ended up working at Ground Zero. It was a crazy time, but it was exciting. That was why I wanted to live there. And then it was because before the internet, if you wanted to be rich or famous or successful, you couldn't be in a small town. You had to go to a big city. And so I think people are still brainwashed to think that they need to go to one of these hubs to make it, and you don't.
Well, I mean, you don't have to, but there is something to be said for if you're trying there is something to be said for the networking aspect. If you're around people, and this is something that Tim has talked about too. If you're around people and you're spending time with them at work, and it's why remote working is bad or is not as productive as going to a job. Like if you're working on a team if you're working on a project with a team, you'll go to lunch together, you'll inevitably talk about the project, and you'll actually get more done because you're in the presence of other people. And when it comes to, from my experience, from being in a band, if you're going to shows, right? If you're going to shows during the week, you go 2-3 shows a week, you're hanging around with people that are in the music industry, you're making connections, bands that come through, you'll meet those bands, you'll end up getting more tour opportunities, you'll know people in the music industry, as in like in press, in the media, you'll know people that are working at labels. A ton of people are like, well, I'm going to move to California in LA because there is so much going on in the music industry, and the same thing can be said for New York City. And I assume that's the same in many industries. The reason people that are in the tech industry want to live in in Silicon Valley, they'll be around other people in the tech industry. They'll be around other people that have similar ideas, similar experiences, similar jobs. So there is something to be said for having the access to an infrastructure of people or networking of people.
Sharyl, did you move there and then develop a networking and establish your career and then leave and go somewhere smaller? What was your flow?
I went from local news to CNN back when it was a news organization in 1990 to 93. Then all the networks offered me jobs in New York, kind of had to go there if I wanted to try the next thing. Did not like New York. Didn't live there very long, working for CBS News. They gave me a choice to stay there or move overseas to report or move to Washington, D.C. and report, I took the latter, Washington, D.C.
Oh.
But living in New York, I think it's cute at first because you're living the New York life and everybody's rude and mean. It's funny because I'm from the South. So my husband used to say it's like a circus every day. You get up and you go out and see the carnival. Then to me, it gets tiring. After you live that way for a while, it ceases to become cute, and it's just tiring.
Oh God, literally, because the brake
Smells
dust
like sour milk.
Yeah, that brake dust comes off the brakes in cars. It's so small, fine particulates that it gets through the alveoli and the lungs right into your bloodstream. Talk about exhaust, you're literally exhaust. Physically, it will exhaust your body.
You can wipe your apartment down if you live in Manhattan and you try to open the windows and wipe it down twice a day. You'll never get rid of the dirt.
It's like black stuff on the windowsill.
Yeah.
Let's jump to this next story, ladies and gentlemen. We covered this last week. Experts now even more confident a vast city exists under Giza pyramids in Egypt after new discovery. Scientists on a mission to prove a vast city sits more than 4,000 feet below Egypt's Giza pyramids have released a new analysis they say proves the findings to be true. Take a look at this. This is what they're claiming. Let's zoom out. They're claiming that under the pyramids, look at this, the Great Pyramid of Giza. How do you pronounce that?
Khafra.
Khafra and Menkaure.
Yeah.
Underneath it, they say there's giant vertical shafts, 8 vertically aligned cylindrical structures arranged in 2 parallel rows from north to south, descends to a depth of more than 2,100 feet. And look at this. This is what they're claiming. So now you've got people like Ian claiming that they're giant batteries or something.
Yeah, I'll tell you the truth. I made a video yesterday about this, and I've been doing research on it all week. There's no corroborating evidence that I can find. This is just some Italian scientists said
they say a confidence level above 85%.
That's awesome, because I want it to be true. It's just I need to see the scientific paper before I start to throw weight behind it. But if it was real and they had wells underneath the pyramids that were that deep down to the aquifers underneath, they might have been tapping into what's called a telluric current. It's Telluric.
That sounds like something you made up.
Yeah, but in fact, I didn't. It's called a telluric current. It means earth current. And it's this low voltage current that travels around the planet and follows water.
Electrical current.
He didn't make it up, in fact.
Yeah.
It's an electrical current that flows underground or through the sea, resulting in the from natural and human-induced causes, extremely low frequency.
And it'll actually go out of the earth, out into the sun. And it goes into the sun and then comes back to the earth through the poles. And there's this flow. And so Nikola Tesla was obsessed with tapping into the earth's telluric current to produce power. So if these guys had water, and down there they're tapping into this electrolyte of salt water, and then they had a conductor in these wells, it could have been sending a charge up to the top, which is where they've got these granite buildings, what they call the King's Chamber in the Great Pyramid. It's one of them. It's granite. Everything else is limestone, and the pyramid is made of granite, essentially everything else. And why? Granite's a crystal. It vibrates. It's very dense. It's very strong. So they have these identical 5 granite structures that look like powered nodes, like power station nodes. And it's possible that they were vibrating and creating an electrical charge that was like a Tesla coil. If you hold an incandescent light up near an active Tesla coil, it lights up. So that these pyramids might have been lighting up the vicinity.
You think they were lighting up?
Yeah, maybe.
I mean,
'cause there's no fire in the pyramids.
The oil companies have had the technology for a long time to see pretty deep with precision into the ocean floor and into the ground. This seems like it'd be pretty easy to figure out.
I think that's what they did.
Okay.
They're using
then that should
ground
be easy.
penetrating
We could
technologies.
get a second party to come in and ask BP to go in there and take a look or something.
The problem they'd had before is they were using photons, I believe, to measure. And if you have lots of different objects, you can't penetrate all the objects properly. They diffract and they bounce and they stop each other. But now what this guy claims to have done, these scientists, is that they are converting photonic data into phonons, which are sound, lower frequency, and they're able to measure seismic data, seismic activity. And so they can see around everything that's inside. And they said, literally, they use the word transparent. With their technology, the pyramids become transparent. And they can, but I'm waiting on the scientific
I'm just
paper.
wondering how nobody found these before just by digging. I mean, like, people have gone in the pyramids.
We're so early.
Didn't Mr. Beast go in the pyramids?
Yeah, he went under the pyramids. Jimmy Corsetti posted about that. He said, it basically debunks this claim. Mr. Beast was under Jimmy. I don't know what Jimmy's last name is, Mr. Beast.
Beast.
But I'm talking about Jimmy. Yeah,
Jimmy Beast.
Jimmy Beast was down there in the waterways under the pyramids, apparently. I guess, I don't know. I don't know if he was. I got to ask him.
Just the idea that
Look at this.
if they did have electricity, if they had access to some kind of electricity like that, I mean, that really would end up changing everything we know about history.
So what if they're gigantic, like, copper cylinders with wire winding all around them?
That'd be so cool.
And then, or they could have, because they
that'd be
said
terrifying,
they said those were spiral staircases, so they might have went down to those cubes. The cubes, apparently, I think they're hollow, and the water was flowing through the cubes.
Bro, there's stairs.
Well, that's what they said, is that there's spiral staircases.
2,100 foot tall spiral staircases.
That's what they said.
That's a long staircase.
I know, because I thought they were coils. At first, I was like, what you said, that they were made of like a conductor, and those were the coils, but maybe they dipped the conductor into the well. It's one of the two, if that were the direction they were heading. But then in ancient Egypt, they talked about the underworld under the pyramids where souls would go. I think it's Amenoph or something in the book of, it's the Book of the Dead. Yeah, they talk about it. And people would go under the pyramids and their souls would get washed away into this flow, perhaps the telluric current. And from the flow would come the souls. And they would like teach people, like, when you're about to die, these are the things you say to the spirits. This is how you navigate that realm, because
So you're saying that electricity doesn't exist. It's actually the
Ghosts.
souls of all the dead people in the ground, and their energy is being harnessed.
maybe it's the same thing.
My car runs on ghosts.
Maybe true.
Just shoving ghosts into my car.
But what's weird is
Get around.
I had originally said it's an ancient culture before Egypt, before the Egyptians, 10,000, 15,000 years ago. They had this technology, Atlantis, and it was washed away. And then the Egyptians came and they built on top of it, and they didn't know what the hell was going on. But these underground, the pyramids is limestone. And everyone's like, where did they get the limestone for the pyramids? Well, they dug it from underneath, apparently, if this is true. So it would have been the Egyptians that built on top, would have mined it then. But if the Egyptians built the mine, then it wouldn't have been the ancient culture that built the mine.
You know, it'd be cool if they like dig into there and there's this massively advanced city, but like abandoned, just been there for 4,000 years.
I hope it's abandoned.
Hope there is.
No, there's dinosaurs down there, and they're trying to press the buttons, but their arms aren't long enough, and they're like, "This sucks."
What if there's like ancient batteries? Because there's this thing called the Baghdad battery. This is where it really got the idea, and it's a copper, or it's like a clay pot, and they'll fill it with an electrolyte, like
Vinegar or lemon juice or something,
or wine or something like that. And then they'll do the iron rod with the copper wiring, or copper rod. It's an iron rod with copper wiring, and they get an electrical charge, and then they can link the. So it's best of my submission, man. I hope it's real.
Yeah, this is pretty crazy. If it's true though.
It is. I mean, apparently it is real. It's just a matter of, can we actually figure out what it is?
Because if those scientists lied, their reputations are destroyed forever, and no one will ever take them seriously for the rest of eternity. So why would they lie about this?
Why don't they scan under other pyramids?
They did. In 2022, they scanned the Great Pyramid with this same technology, and they have an interesting.
Yeah, but what about the other pyramids in like Central America?
I don't know yet.
Look, there are people that make mistakes. There are people out there that will swear up and down the earth is flat.
So listen, there was a story a couple years ago that cracked me up and reminds me about when people talk about science as if it's something you can say is exact. We reported on CBS when I was working there that they had found what appeared to be the oldest man that was still intact, and they gave some date of billions, millions of years old. He was naked, wearing no clothes, found him at the top of the mountain in some foreign country. So we did a little reader on that on the news. The next day, there was a little correction on Associated Press that said the daughter of the man recognized that as her father, who had disappeared a couple years ago climbing up the mountain.
Wow.
I'm like, okay, the scientists said this was the oldest guy that they'd ever seen preserved in ice, and it was really just this woman's father.
Well, I remember back in the day, every other day, coffee either caused or cured cancer. News would be like, coffee will help prevent cancer. The next day, coffee may actually cause cancer. And it's like, okay.
Cholesterol, too. Cholesterol good, cholesterol bad.
Remember,
cholesterol good.
Fat was bad. Everybody had low-fat everything.
Yes.
Now sugar's bad.
Yeah, they did that sugar-free craze where they just...
They claim that that the sugar industry ran a propaganda campaign against fat, blaming fat for weight gain and stuff.
I think there's good evidence about
Katie
it.
Couric's documentary Fed Up is all about that.
Wouldn't it be funny if in 20 years they're like, actually, fat was bad the whole time, and the fat industry ran a campaign against the sugar industry, accusing them of a...
It's so frustrating, but I
Hard to
wouldn't be
believe.
shocked.
To be fair, though, you need fat to regulate hormones. And so when people were cutting all that fat out of their diets and eating gelatin and other garbage like gum.
Especially saturated fats. Those are good. The
To be fair, you look at cows getting fat, not eating fat, but eating hay and
grass. They eat grass.
Corn.
They eat
That's
cud.
what makes them fat, not
corn, tree
Actually, I think cows eat bacteria. Isn't that what they do? They chew on the cud. The bacteria then starts growing on it. So they eat the grass, it goes in their stomach, they spit it up, chew on it again. The bacteria grows on it, and then their body digests the bacteria.
Is that the good stuff we want in our gut? You know how they say we have to have the good? All right. Well, we should chew our cud.
Haven't you been doing deep dives on health and...
Not that. But yeah, I've been doing deep dives on some of the stuff you guys are alluding to about the manipulation of the health information and why we've got all these chronic health disorders.
You saw the West Virginia banning artificial dyes.
Yes, I reported on that. In fact, I think a lot of bans are about to come because this has been on the precipice of it with the FDA taking action. Finally, on the eve of Donald Trump taking office, they finally have decided to take action on a couple of these things like red dye. Number 3, I think they're going to ban fluoride. Everybody says that's a conspiracy theory.
Whoa, you think the government's going to ban fluoride in water?
Yeah.
Why do you think that?
There's been a court decision in California that I don't know why more people haven't reported it, but based on the scientific evidence that is established that fluoride at levels typically found in water, the judge agreed.
When was this ruling?
In the last 6 months.
So September-ish?
And the court ordered the EPA to make a determination as to what should be done to make it safe. And since there's no way to make it safe because you can't regulate how much fluoride a person gets because you don't know how much water an individual's drinking or getting in all of their products.
Let's start from the top because I pulled this up. This is from CBS News.
Yeah.
Federal court rules against EPA in lawsuit over fluoride in water. Is this the story that you were talking about?
But you could look at Full Measure with Sharyl Attkisson and see an even better story.
Let's pull that up.
Excuse me.
So what's the gist of this?
The gist is the court agrees there's overwhelming scientific evidence as to the risks and dangers of fluoride in water, and the EPA is under an order now to come up with some kind of policy decision that there seems to be no way out. The EPA cannot certify that fluoride is safe in the water, so as a result, they're going to have to likely admit that it's not safe, which will then mean states, communities, cities, and so on can't use it.
So CBS says a federal court in California ruled late Tuesday against the EPA ordering officials to take action over concerns about potential health risks from currently recommended levels of fluoride in the American drinking water supply. The ruling by D.C. Judge Edward Chen, an appointee of Obama, deals a blow to public health groups in the growing debate about whether the benefits of continuing to add fluoride to the water outweighs the risk. I am confused. Are they saying public health groups want fluoride in water?
Yes, because they're bought out by the fluoride industry, which is a very well-funded and orchestrated propaganda campaign that began when it was discovered that fluoride was a byproduct of industrial processes and was too dangerous to dispose of in the ground. I think we're talking 1920s, 1930s. Industries were going to have to figure out a way, and it was going to be expensive to dispose of the dangerous fluoride. And instead, they found a way to market it to communities as something that we should put they're supposed to keep it out of the environment, but then they sold it to communities as a way to put it in your environment and in your food and in your water and make your teeth better. And the evidence was dubious, and there are questions over whether the studies actually even showed that was the case. But there's no doubt now, I think if you look at it, the overwhelming body of science, particularly the independent science that's not connected to industry, shows there's all kinds of health risks with putting this medication in water when people are, used to be a time when we weren't getting a lot of fluoride, but now it's in toothpaste, it's in your drinks that you get because that's fluoridated, now it's in the water. And if you get too much of this medicine/drug, and think about children, little babies, and so on, it can have all kinds of
it can affect your IQ, right?
We've got this from SF Chronicle. This California city is fluoride-free. Dentists there worry about the trend spreading. I've always loved this because it's like, I have fluoride in my toothpaste. I don't need to eat it.
You don't.
Right?
You're supposed
to not eat it. In fact, there's a question as to whether you're not supposed to eat it and how bad it may be when you're drinking it, how much benefit that can be to your teeth.
Why would dentists worry?
Here's a story from Reuters.
That's what I was thinking.
EPA must address fluoridated water's risk to children's IQs, U.S. judge rules. So I got a story for you guys. I had a friend 20 years ago. His sister had a kid. And I walked through his kitchen, and it had nursery water with added fluoride. And I said, why are you giving fluoride water to the baby? And they said, it's nursery water. It's for babies. And I said, no, you don't give, babies don't have teeth. And they're like, no, babies need fluoride. And I was like, no, they don't. They don't need fluoride. She didn't believe me. So I just Googled fluoride babies, and everything that popped up was a warning, do not give your baby fluoride. And I said, why are they giving fluoridated water to babies? This is currently right now, they sell this in stores, extra fluoride water for babies. Babies don't have teeth.
It should not be legal.
Is it just pure profit, or what did you find?
Well, it's a propaganda campaign that's bolstered by the industry that then teaches dentists, who some of them may not know better because, like med schools, the dental schools are conflicted by industry teachings and so on, and it's just become this thing. But again, if you look, there's quite a body of science that undercuts any notion that this is something where the benefits outweigh the risks. And finally, now that a court has agreed, an important federal court, the EPA has to make a decision. And this was said before Trump took office, but now with Trump in office, there's a chance they may do the logical scientific thing.
It's important to know that fluoride, as far as I know, and this could be wrong, but what I've learned is it is good, good maybe, for the enamel, for tooth enamel. It mineralizes enamel.
If you're an adult and you have teeth and you're brushing your teeth with it, you spit it out and don't swallow it.
But even then, it gets on your gums and goes into the bloodstream through the gum.
Sure.
So that's toxin.
Yeah,
if you would consider it toxin, don't swallow it.
A lot of things are, okay? You put a lot of things on your skin that you don't actually want to
exactly,
eat.
Yeah.
Well, you shouldn't put paint on your skin, but there are chemicals you can put on your skin you can't eat. Right? You're not going to eat deodorant.
Correct. You don't get much. If you spit it out, you're not getting it all. You don't want to swallow.
But how about this? They outlawed red dye number 3 in cosmetics a couple decades ago, but left it in the food under a technicality where they just didn't process that part of the FDA said, we don't have enough money to move on that, to look at it.
Well, you saw that RFK Jr. wants to get rid of the grass exceptions, the generally recognized as safe.
Oh, yes.
So we talked about propylene glycol, which is used as, I forgot what the word is, but it's to make food seem moist. It's this jelly garbage. It's an antifreeze. They say it's fine to eat, so they put it in. If you go to a gas station to buy a bakery product, it's probably got propylene glycol in it. It simulates moistness because otherwise they dry out. Then there's trisodium phosphate. Some guy had a viral video where he said, this is in Cinnamon Toast Crunch, but if you look at the bag of trisodium phosphate, it says harmful if ingested. So how is it in our food? Also generally recognized as safe. RFK Jr. says he's going to get rid of this exception, and that anybody who wants to put any kind of chemicals in food has to get them tested for the health effects on humans.
I mean, it makes sense. I don't understand. It's one of the most important things that we could be doing. It's what we're feeding our kids. I'm older than you guys, but as a kid, we used to read cereal boxes in the morning because there was nothing else to do. We didn't have, phones. We would read the ingredients and we'd quiz each other. And I always saw BHA and BHT added for freshness. And as a joke, before I started covering these things, maybe a decade or two ago, I would say to my siblings, what if we find out BHA and BHT added for freshness is actually like causing cancer or bad for us? It is. These are preservatives that they now recognize have all kinds of issues that they've been shoving into cereal that we've been spooning to ourselves and our kids. Why is that allowed? The generally recognized as safe.
I wonder why, because obviously it's profitable. So they paying people off to look the other way. But it's like just in the U.S., a lot of these, and they're banned in Europe. So is this like European bankers that are like, let's destroy America from the inside. We'll profit and we'll poison them. This is great.
It just seems to be that the U.S. has been easier for whatever reason. It probably happens in Europe as well. But we've been the kings at being able to be captured by industry when I'm talking about our political parties and our agencies.
Do you think it's really, it's impossible to derive if it's what kind of malfeasance is going on, but you think it's mostly profit from your research?
Yeah, I think they control, these special interests have figured out how to control our information landscape. That's where the realm in which I work, and I've written a lot about this, and as such have been able to control a lot about any kind of regulation and hearings and rules that would take place in laws. So it's just sort of a free-for-all for them. And then the media, because we're captured, we're not doing the proper oversight. We used to kind of be the equalizer. We could step in if maybe members of Congress were corrupt and the federal agencies weren't doing their job. There were we. But now we've stepped back too, because starting, in my view, around the 2005-2006 time period, we got captured worse than ever before. And now you don't see the media doing the fair, dual-sided stories as much.
Abolish the FDA too. If they exist and all these things have happened that are negatively impacting people, then the FDA is not fit for purpose.
I'd be open to retrofitting the FDA, if it actually worked.
Not to get rid of it,
but some oversight might be nice. Because what if
that's what insurance companies are for?
I disagree. I think we need more regulation.
You got to protect the dumb masses. I don't know.
It's not about protecting the dumb masses. It's that. The average person doesn't understand when they put yellow 5 on a food box, what is that? And the average person just thinks yellow dye is not a big deal. If they were forced to actually put the name of that product, and they should be, how about we play this game? Don't ban the artificial dyes, name them. So yellow 5, they would put tartrazine, parentheses, coal tar derivative. See if people want to eat that.
Okay. Do you guys know about the Yucca app? So it does kind of what you're saying, why I love it. You can use this and scan anything at the grocery store, even cosmetics. I accidentally scanned something or stuff you put on your face. And it not only tells you the health stuff, which I think a lot of apps do, like what's good or what's bad. It tells you these additives and chemicals and preservatives and what they cause. So instead of having that cute little name, you can click the button. It rates the food good, bad, poor, whatever. But then it tells you why. And when I'm looking at food now, if it says, maybe it's got a little too much fat in it, I'm okay with that. I'm looking for the chemical stuff in there and the cancer-causing stuff.
I got bad news for Maha. I got bad news, Phil.
Ruh-roh.
We can tell people that we want to make food better. We can ban artificial dyes. We can do all of those things. But there is a commercial on TV, several actually, where a man eats a slice of pizza and then goes, and then it's like, your favorite food's causing you pain? Take this pill. I'm not going to name what drug it is. He then takes the pill and smiles and eats the pizza.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting there thinking dude, if doing something is hurting you, you're supposed to stop doing it. But imagine there's a guy putting his hand on an electric stove and going, it burns, but I really want to. So we take this painkiller.
This Novocaine in your hand.
Yep.
And he's like,
now I can keep doing this thing. It's like, bro, you're hurting yourself. People will choose to eat things that kill them and take drugs to mask the pain.
Yep.
So I don't think that actually labeling the food is going to save the average person. That being said, there's a mom out there who doesn't know when she buys cereal that she's giving her kid some pesticide or some other garbage. And if she did, she wouldn't buy it.
Right.
Yeah, like hyperlinks. We're not there yet. We're still using paper where you can't touch a piece of paper and get a hyperlink. But soon, maybe with graphene, if our labels are also have a electrical current going through them, they can store a little bit of a charge and they have Wi-Fi access. You can tap the label on the ingredient and it will take you to show you the issues. And it'll be red if there's health concerns associated with the ingredient.
But here's the thing. A lot of these products are already less adulterated in Europe, for example. And I think all Kennedy needs to do, and I think he has plans to do this, is require more disclosure and warnings, and some will just change the recipe. I mean, a lot of them will choose not to put the warning on there, but to adopt a recipe that they're already using in Europe because they don't allow it there.
I think, West Virginia is banning artificial dyes. At first, I was thinking this could shift the national food supply, as big companies are going to say, it's probably cheaper just to change our product than lose West Virginia entirely as a market. But then I remembered what these companies said about why they use these dyes in the first place. When they tried using the natural food dyes, which are actually in some instances cheaper, they didn't sell as well. People wanted the brighter, vibrant colors. So they tried using blueberries and carrots. They switched back to artificial dyes. They're going to say, if we switch to these dull colors through, using fruit dyes, we're going to lose $1 billion.
Well,
Just don't do
West Virginia is not the only one. I think there's a dozen states or more that are looking at the same. It's a trend because people are starting to recognize it. And maybe there's some hope in the idea that you're right. A lot of people are still going to choose to do what they want to do regardless of the disclosure. But I think a lot of people aren't. You talk about the moms that wouldn't be giving their kids that cereal. They're either going to have to change the formula of cereal or at least offer some better choices. I think there will be a big difference for a lot of people.
Yeah, I saw an episode of, I think it was Diary of a CEO, and they were talking about that alcohol with Gen Z is like 20% what it used to be. Like this generation is awake when it comes to health.
Oh, yeah. People aren't drinking sodas anymore. That's why they're doing all these soda commercials now where they're bragging about how they have low sugar options. But it's because the younger generations are not drinking sodas.
Do you know, I drank a Coke every day, at least once since I was a kid, because that's my coffee in the morning. And I stopped, I think, 3.5 weeks ago today.
Wow.
No Coke.
Awesome.
I listened to a podcast about sugars and sucrose and fructose, and I'm like, oh, dang, something else I got to cut out. But it's so bad.
About just shocking the liver and turning into fat.
Yeah, and the insulin and your metabolism. And
you'll also notice that millennials tend to say, how come people looked so much older back then? Like they show pictures of the Seinfeld cast, and they're like, these people were in their early 30s, late 20s, early 30s, and they looked like their 40s, late 40s. Yeah. What was causing it? I think it's actually pretty easy. 3 things. The first is the obvious. They drank a lot more back then. They smoked a lot more back then. But more importantly, they also went outside a lot more. And the sun damages your skin. So you combine those things. The reason why I think that the current, millennials and Gen Z look a lot younger, even Gen X looks a lot younger, a lot less time spent outdoors, a lot less sun damage on the skin.
What is your theory about Donald Trump? So he's 78 years old. My husband's 78 years old. And he's got a lot of health issues and problems. But I know a lot of 78-year-old guys. I don't know any of them that move and act like Donald Trump.
Trump never drank.
Like him. Okay. I'm wondering
he claims to have never had a drink.
And it's true because if anyone had ever seen him sip anything, we'd know about it.
Well, they've claimed it, but his story is that he's never had a drink. His brother was an alcoholic and it terrified him. And so he stayed away from it. Some people have argued they've seen him holding drinks at parties, and that's their proof. BS. You'll see me holding a drink at a party. It's going to be a club soda with a splash of cranberry, and it's not alcoholic. So they may have seen Trump holding something. It could have been apple juice for all they know.
He's got
the other day during the interview, which I mentioned, he was 3 hours late because he was talking to NATO and dealing with Russia, and he walks in having not had dinner yet because I asked him late. And he strolls in like a guy who's 30 years old. I know he doesn't look like he's 30. I'm not saying that, but he moves like a boss. And I'm thinking, I don't know 78-year-old guys. And I do wonder is it true that you destroy all the brain cells when you heard when you were a kid? I did. You destroy 10,000 brain cells every time you get drunk. Do you ever hear that?
Something like that.
There's a phenomenon called neurogenesis where your body recreates neurons and grows new neurons. And Trump might just, because, he's living his best self. He's like truly in line with God, whether you like him or not. He's like being his ultimate version of who he can be. So he's aligned. He's not stressed. He doesn't seem stressed about secrets and all these. He's like just doing. So that keeps you young, doing what you love. Also, and this is maybe too hot for TV, but a lot comes down to prostate health and guys that, the word is ejaculate 5 times a week. There's science about that can keep you extremely healthy.
You're saying Donald Trump's
I did
getting it
not
on.
know that.
Yeah, he might just be like, Melania, you are the hottest, and she's down.
And the reason she always looks so frumpy is because she's tired.
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine keeping up with that guy?
All right, we're going to go to Super Chats and Rumble Rants, my friends. Thank God. Smash that like button, share the show with everyone you know, because it's the right thing to do. Telling your friends about Timcast IRL can save their lives. I'm exaggerating, but it's a good thing to do because it helps us.
It's possible.
And yeah, maybe. Maybe they're sitting there, they're sad, they're overweight, and they just one day watch the show and they see Phil's guns, and they're just like, I want to be as ripped as he is.
Go to Fitcast IRL.
We're going to have that uncensored call-in show coming up for you about a half an hour at rumble.com/Timcast IRL. So join Rumble Premium, promo code TIM10, $10 off, and we're going to take your calls. So join the Timcast Discord server. Go to timcast.com, click join us, get in our Discord server, because if you're just sitting around watching the news, I'm asking you to be an active participant in this culture war with us. You will join tens of thousands of individuals. There's a fit chat room where it's a room dedicated to getting in shape. People are going to talk to you. They're going to cheer you on. You're going to make friends. There's rooms dedicated to starting new projects, writing music, doing all this cool stuff. And more importantly, you can just hang out in the IRL chat where you can discuss these political ideas and contribute your thoughts to this moment. We need you. If everybody who voted for Trump in 2024 stayed politically active, we would have no problem winning 26 and 28. Let's grab some chats from you guys. Let's see what we got going on over here. Insert generic names as obligatory. We are in labor with Timcast in the background. Oh, wow. Congratulations. Hopefully welcoming our baby girl into the world soon. Congratulations. I recommend it. Recommend it as a new father myself.
It's very inspiring.
What's funny is I can't speak for all parents, but I see these movies where the baby's crying and the parents are getting frustrated. Like, I don't understand why you're crying. I do not feel any annoyance or any anger or anything when the baby cries. It's usually just, she's hungry. And then when Allison's like either getting a bottle ready, because we're trying not to do formula, but we do a little bit, and she's just screaming, I just got a smile on my face. Baby's crying, she's screaming like the world's ending, but it's okay. In 1 minute, your bottle will be here, and then she stops.
Does Allison have, so as a mom, I had a involuntary reaction of just sweat and I need to help the baby. I didn't even mean to. My husband was very calm and collected, and I would just be like, I got to help the baby, got to help the baby.
I just need to say this, okay? Because as a new father, again, there's a lot of dads out there and a lot of moms who already know everything well and way more than I do. I am shocked by the pro-life arguments missing some of the most important points. I've been watching pro-life, pro-choice debates my whole life. And it was only, I don't know, within the past few years that I learned why formula was so important when the formula shortage happened. I was like, we need formula for. I had never experienced it. And there were parents who were like, sometimes mom doesn't produce enough milk. And then baby goes hungry and is screaming and needs that food because baby can lose weight very quickly. And I was like, really? I never considered that. So I see these arguments, and there was one recently where the woman said, a baby's not alive. It's the mother's body. It's just a fetus. And the woman said, at what point is the baby alive? The woman then says, once it's able to survive on its own. And the woman said, well, babies can't take care of themselves, right? Someone's got to take care of them. Wrong. Babies literally need mother's milk. Like, babies can't eat food. How about that? You tell the pro-choice people, like, when the baby's born and it's able to survive on its own, oh, you mean it like 6-7 months maybe, when it can start eating mashed fruits? For that whole period, the baby can literally only have breast milk. We only recently invented formula because babies can't digest real food. So that meant up until the mid-1900s, babies were literally eating nothing but mother's breast milk. So when they say things like, oh, once the baby's born and now it's on its own, that's not true. The baby is still very much attached to that mother. So I think I was just surprised that that's not a principal argument that pro-lifers make right away off the bat. They say things like the baby needs its mother, but they don't explain, no, literally.
I was going to say, it's almost like there's still one organism. There's still a connected organism. Even though they're separated by space, there's still kind of, well, I mean, I'm still connected to my mother, you know?
This is why I said, after the instructions from the doctor, I was immediately against surrogacy. The doctor explained that mothers produce breast milk specifically formulated for the baby. The baby's saliva triggers a reaction in the breast, and the breast produces a specific balance of fats, proteins, and sugars. And I went, what? Because the doctor was explaining that sometimes you'll see different fat concentrations. And then when we asked about it, she was like, well, for instance, premature babies, there'll be a thick layer of fat in the breast milk after the mother pumps. And I'm like, why is that? Because the mother's body is reacting to the premature baby's saliva and producing a specific formula. And I'm like, so then what is formula we give babies? A baseline generic, we hope it works? And I'm like, whoa.
Okay.
So the baby could be lacking fats and sickly, and your formula is not doing enough for it. And if it was breastfeeding from the mother, it's getting the proper balance of nutrients.
You know, that's similar to if a husband and a wife were about to have a baby and they used a sperm donor. You might think, like, is this still my child even though that wasn't my sperm? Is it still my child if it's not my wife's breast milk? If it's some corporation's thing, is that still my offspring?
And then I started reading about this. Milk siblings. Do you know what that is? Back in the day, because it is true, today we use formula because we're a very anti-social society. Wet nurses.
I was just going to see if you knew about wet nurses.
Women were typically always nursing because they're having lots of babies. So if a mother was not producing enough, or a new mother wasn't producing at all, it was just colostrum, they would actually give the baby to another mother to provide milk for someone else's baby, and they would be called milk siblings. So.
And my mom said that when she would have to go do something, she had friends that had babies, they would just breastfeed each other's babies while the one was out. So.
Yeah. Milk siblings, it was a normal thing for hundreds of thousands of years of humanity. Wow. Today, we invented formula, and now we're very antisocial. We don't talk to our neighbors. This concept doesn't exist. And formula does not give your baby everything you need. Let me tell you guys, to all the guys out there who've already been through there who are chuckling right now, I had to go to the store to buy formula, and I'm looking at the ingredients, and I was just like, absolutely not. Corn syrup and soy.
Would you make your own? Have you looked into making your own? Is that
so? We got the best. This is why the European stuff is so popular. The stuff that we got is the best you can get, and we were trying to find not necessarily hypoallergenic stuff, but there's like sensitive formulas. And then I look at it, it's like soybean oil, corn syrup, and our doctors were telling us, don't give that to your kid.
Whoa.
And we're like, what do we do? That's crazy.
You know about Operation Stork Speed?
Yes.
Yep. So there is, I can't remember the name of it, but there are things in baby formula that are forbidden in adult food, but baby formula has an exemption because the baby formula makers want to have it in there so badly and did some kind of lobbying. So something that's not safe for adults is now allowed in baby formula, and
insane.
He's trying to fix all that.
Yeah, I just want to stress one more time, like the best pro-life argument I heard, the best anti-surrogacy argument I've heard is that mothers produce a specific formula for the babies, and that store-bought formula does not give the baby what it needs. That's very, very important. Not to mention, if someone is having a surrogate baby, and I don't mean this for women who are unable to have children, so they get a surrogate and the woman can still lactate. I'm talking about when it's like two guys going to another country, having the baby, and then bringing it back to their country, but we'll formula feed the baby. That baby is not getting its nutrients. It's babies can't eat food. Anyway, we should read more chats. What do we got over here with the Rumble rants? All right. Concrete Hades says, why is the government of Canada allowed to buy ads crying about tariffs in the U.S.? I'll help end foreign influence as governor, Jesse for Ohio. I got no problem with them buying ads. Let them buy the ads, and then we'll rag on them. I don't know, just TV. H. Charles Foster III says, Ian, the Dems have been the party of bloated bureaucracy and of burdening constitutional rights for over 150 years.
Is that true?
Yeah.
I mean,
yep.
I guess that was the old Republican Party.
No.
Other way around. The old Democratic Party became the Republicans.
Nope.
What the hell? What am I thinking about?
Propaganda.
Abraham Lincoln?
Abraham Lincoln was a Republican.
Yeah.
And the Republicans still very much have very similar ethos.
Didn't they say the parties flipped at some point?
Never happened.
Not literally, but
nope, never happened.
That's a story that's told that's disputed. That's
just not true.
Okay.
Yep.
I like your comment. Thank you.
The actual story I prefer is that Democrats in the civil rights era realized that their racist policy. Okay, the Democrats are the party of Jim Crow segregation. The Democrats were the pro-parties were for slavery. The Confederates were the Democrats. After the end of the Civil War, the Democrats were the ones that maintained racism and all of these things. Into the 1950s, the Democrats were the ones that were supporting segregation. And the theory is, at some point, they realized, wait a minute, we are going about this the wrong way. We can't be the party that's antagonistic. It's not working. We've continually been on the outside. We've got to flip this around. So the Democrats decided to adopt welfare policies and the destruction of the black family as a and Planned Parenthood and abortion as a means of destroying the black community and keeping them down. That actually aligns much better with history as far as from what I've read. This idea that at some point the Democrats just had an epiphany. Well, we've been for segregation for 150 years. Let's be against racism all of a sudden. Makes literally no sense. When you look at the results of what Democrat policy does to minority communities, you're kind of going, I think they don't like minorities.
I know that
I think they're just pretending.
The Black Panthers had, like, the government really went after weed in order to keep the Black Panthers and the hippies down because they were afraid of political revolution. So it might be that they don't want an underclass revolution. And so they've kind of separated and controlled them with bureaucracy.
Alex,
Planned Parenthood.
And did you know that most Planned Parenthoods are in minority neighborhoods?
But Sanger, they disavow the founder on the Planned Parenthood website now because she talked about,
because it was
Yep.
it was eugenics.
eugenics. So.
Alex Gray says Alex Rosen is in jail. He's charged with disturbing the peace and trespassing for exposing a pedophile at a Steak and Shake who employs and is protecting him. Pedo not arrested. I will say this, though. You got to be careful. Because sooner or later, someone's going to they're going to manipulate this. They're going to catfish him, and they're going to set him up so that he gets arrested. He's going to find some random guy. He's going to have messages that he's pretty sure are from this guy, but this guy is not the person who sent it. It was a catfish, and they're going to get him arrested.
Yeah, that's a good point. You got to be careful about that. It could
I'm sure
very
they've
well be like,
considered it.
I'll be sitting in a booth at the restaurant, and then they go there and there's some guy sitting at a booth at a restaurant. It's like, not the guy.
But they could set somebody up, too. So they could take pictures of you, and then, here's me. And then they show up and you're sitting there like, bro, I have no idea what you're talking about. I didn't message anybody. And then people can get arrested.
Like being swatted, but with
There have been stories, if you watch these videos, not Alex Rosen, because he's more meticulous, but there was a video recently where some guys were attacking a guy and it was the wrong guy. And then the cops came up and then they were like, man, we're sorry. We got the wrong guy. And that's why vigilante justice is scary. Scary stuff. But I like Alex Rosen, All right, the Quiet Part Pod says, Tim, as far as strength goes, the U.S. has already conquered the world. Think about it. We literally have bases everywhere, supplemented by our naval fleet, which is mobile. Nobody can stand against us. Indeed, that's correct.
I don't know. Not everywhere. Not literally everywhere, obviously. Do we have a base in Beijing? No.
Well, the reality, though, is if the BRICS nations rose up all at once, we lose. Well, maybe we don't lose, but the United States can't stand alone. If we got a BRICS versus NATO, it'll be interesting to see who wins. The U.S. is very powerful in that regard. But the U.S. is not stronger than all of its adversaries. So, all right, let's see what we got in the old Super Chat department. Robert Romano says, tariffs are medicine. Take your medicine. Well, okay. I like that. What do we have here? Zero Noose says, Tim, I saw Canadian government paid for advertising on I-75 that say tariffs are a tax on your groceries. Well, they're lying.
Whatever.
Yep. Kelly Adams says, Tim, congrats on your baby girl. I usually watch IRL the morning after, but tonight I'd like to join in the fun and announce the birth of my second son, Elijah.
Hey.
God bless.
Congratulations.
Phil, more go to the gym posts.
Fair enough. I've been moving, so we've been slacking.
Do you document your gym activity normally on Twitter?
Usually I'll just go and I'll post it. Like if I go to the gym, I'll just put a little quick video, like go to the gym, just something to keep people motivated.
Matthew Morell says, did anyone hear that we bombed Yemen again, like for the millionth time?
We've been bombing them for days.
Oh, man.
Yeah, the funny thing is, I think the whole story's a hoax. I think
Bombing Yemen?
No. I think the signal story is intentional. There's not going to be any resignations. There was no hard. So everyone's debating whether the information should have been classified or was classified. It wasn't classified because they deemed it not classified. They announced to Jeffrey Goldberg, a journalist, 2 hours before the strikes, the time in which F-18s would launch. They did not describe specific weapons other than that they would be delivered the vehicles, and they did not specify targets. So there was nothing absolutely critical. More importantly, governments loop in journalists on this stuff all the time. If the Trump administration had come out and said, when asked, like, why did Jeffrey Goldberg get on this? If Tulsi Gabbard just chuckled and went, we were trying to loop a journalist in on our thought process for the strikes on Yemen, and he was invited to our chat. We wanted to have an adversarial journalist access to the decision-making process. We did not include confidential information. We wanted them to see our process. The confidential discussion of sources, targets, and otherwise was held in a skiff. There'd be no story whatsoever.
Did they end up following through with the plans from the chat in?
Yeah. I mean,
But to clarify, nothing was specified.
yeah,
Because
It just said the target will be hit.
one thing you could do if you were like we talked about this a little bit on the Green Show. If you were about to plan a military operation, say we're going to invade from the east, you go and you get a journalist, and you tell them we'll be invading from the west, and then they go out and they spill the beans and tell the world fake information that you intended the world, because you don't want your enemy to know where you're coming. So you want the journalists to be confused. And
Actually, they don't do that. The military often invites journalists to ride along with them on operations. That's why I'm like, this is not a story at all. The only story is that Jeffrey Goldberg's an adversarial journalist.
Yep.
So I think it's possible that they accidentally added him, but that seems so weird. Then you look at what was actually said in these messages, and it's exactly the message that Trump wanted to get out. We're reluctant to strike the Houthis. We don't want to. Our trade doesn't work there. Egypt and Europe must remunerate. We're the only ones who can do it. We have no choice. I'm like, what? That's the greatest messaging on a missile strike I've ever heard from any administration in my life. When Obama was blowing up kids, they just said, well, they're military-age males, so they're enemy combatants. And we were like, what? Or when Luke asked them about killing Anwar al-Awlaki and Abdurrahman al-Awlaki, and it was, who was it? It was an Obama administration guy said he should have had a better father.
yep.
Now they're about the Houthis, and the narrative is J.D. Vance saying, we're making a mistake here, guys. We shouldn't do this. And people are praising the Trump administration.
Let me ask you this, because I didn't read all the messages, but I heard a whole bunch of them read, and all of them were saying they agree it doesn't have to be done now, but then they went ahead and did it.
No, only a
So
couple.
did something? Okay.
A couple people were saying we could wait a month. And then I think Hegseth was saying we are the only ones who can do this. We need to move now, but the president has final say. The only thing questionable about it was that it said F-18s will launch, and it named the vehicles. It didn't name specific weapons or targets. So I don't buy it.
I do. Well, I don't know what it is exactly, but I think there was malfeasance. Someone screwed up and should be fired.
How
No,
do
no,
you
no, no, no,
accidentally
no. Bring a journalist into
how?
it.
No,
How do you
no,
accidentally
no.
do that?
Or maybe
Either-
someone intentionally did it,
Exactly.
No.
Someone intentionally
firing.
sabotaged.
which is like not just firing, that's prosecution if they intentionally did it.
No firing. No one gets fired. No one loses their job.
Yet.
The Biden administration got 13 Marines killed, and there was no repercussions for anyone in any position.
But I don't even care.
The Republicans do not.
I want to throw that talking point in the garbage. We don't need it if this then that. Biden did bad thing, therefore excuse us here. No, literally nothing happened. Richard Engel was on the ground in Syria during military operations. He knows exactly where they're going, when they're going there, a day in advance. He brought his iPhone with him to Syria. And I actually asked him this. This is NBC News foreign correspondent. Why would you bring your personal device into Syria? You know the Assad regime probably scanned and copied all of that information. And he was shocked. He didn't understand. So when they say 2 hours before a journalist had access to the information, I say, what else is new? They often loop in journalists all the time. If the argument is it was an accidental ad and it could have been some random person, that's an argument. If you want to make an argument, they shouldn't be conducting these conversations on Signal, which delete the messages. That I completely agree with. These should be in the public record that we should be able to go back to when we subpoena at a certain point in time. Disappearing messages are bad for government. But the idea that a journalist got access to information, I'm like, I've reported on stories where the government's given me heads up.
I just want to know who in that group had the Trump-hating editor of Atlantic on speed dial on his Signal, in other words, because you can't just loop them. I would be concerned if I were Trump that there are people he's notorious for having people that were turncoats in the first term working against him while pretending to work for him. I'm sure there is still some
I
of
have
that
got
going on
probably 50 adversarial journalists in my phone.
now. You're not Donald Trump or a political figure that's been fighting that. Like that was really the downfall of a lot of initiatives he tried to make the first term.
If the argument is at this point we realize the pitfalls of being in communication with these guys, maybe we should remove them from these work phones. Fine. But I am not surprised to hear that Mike Waltz had the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic in his phone. That Trump gives comments to these news organizations all the time. I think I cannot, I'm sorry, I'm hearing this from almost nobody, but I really do think Trump did it on purpose. Maybe, I don't know. But you had this story about a judge and Donald Trump and blocking Tren de Aragua and the deportations. Leftists are fundraising off it like crazy. They're launching lawsuits. All of a sudden, a nothing burger story pops up, and it's the apocalypse for the left.
Oh, wow.
People should be fired. Democrats argue this all the time and did during his first term. Trump intentionally makes scandals to distract from his actual operations. The Houthi strikes was last week, and now the only thing the media can do is talk about it. There's nothing in the messages, literally nothing, except for positive pro-Trump messaging. The Atlantic now published all of Donald Trump, all the messaging from Trump's cabinet and the security personnel that make him look good. He's being praised by Trump supporters who were before attacking him for bombing the Houthis. When Donald Trump bombed Yemen, everybody started sharing the video of my interview with him where I said, why are they bombing Yemen? And he said, we shouldn't be doing that. Now, all of a sudden, everyone's saying Trump did a good job. Look at the messaging. J.D. Vance is a patriot. He's saying we shouldn't be doing this. They're expecting remuneration. It's making Trump look good. You look at these messages. Who did it get leaked to? An adversarial journalist they knew would publish it, knew would make it a big story. Why are they having these conversations? Why does it sound so canned? Why is there no shorthand in text messages? Come on, everybody who texts and you're in a group text knows that there's a lot of shorthand. Now, granted, there were some emojis, but this read like it was scripted. Like they were sitting there laughing, like, you think Jeffrey Goldberg's buying it? And then a week after the strike, they made Trump the good guy on the Yemen strike story.
But who's the audience? Because I would argue if you walked around on the streets, almost nobody you ask will know who the Houthis are or anything
and
about
they say that in the messages. They say literally, why are we going to strike them? It's a mistake. Most Americans don't even know who the Houthis are. Then what happens? The Atlantic publishes a story explaining exactly what Trump wanted explained. Maybe not Trump, but his team. It sounds to me like this was manufactured.
Vance is smart enough to do that.
Look at it this way. Trump goes, we're going to strike the Houthis. J.D. Vance says, Mr. President, with all due respect, this goes against your messaging. This is in private. We do this, your base will be mad at you. So, okay, what do? We can put out a statement. We can try and explain why we got to do it. Nobody will run that. Nobody's. If we make a statement, it's going to get picked up by the right-wing press, and they're going to attack the president and say, don't do it. It's wrong. We have to do it, and we have to get the story out. Here's one idea. Let's make a group text, loop in a journalist so that he publishes our messaging the way we want it, and then we'll see how that story goes. They give them the information right before the strike happens, which Trump could have put out in a press release. Strikes have commenced. This guy waits a little while, publishes a story. It's national news for a week. Instead of talking about Tren de Aragua, instead of talking about the Mahmoud Khalil and all these other people, where Democrats use the PR to fundraise, you end up with them talking about a nothing burger text message to a journalist, where I will stress, if the response from Tulsi Gabbard and Pete Hegseth was right at the gate, well, what do you mean? We invited Jeffrey Goldberg to our chat. Well, he's saying you accidentally looped him in. What? No, we intentionally looped him in. I'm sorry, I don't quite understand. We let a journalist into our chat as we were discussing our plans for Yemen. We routinely disclose information to journalists when it's not classified. Jeffrey Goldberg would look like a moron. Instead, they went, whoopsie daisy, and now it's a national story for a week. Maybe.
What'll bolster that is if there is, and this is probably the case, because it doesn't look like anybody's going to be, punished for it. If nobody's punished for it, if they don't say we got to the bottom of who added it and here's who did it and here's who's fired, then that bolsters.
They already said it.
No one should get fired.
No, but they already said it. Trump already said no one will be fired. We're done. Story's over.
Yep.
And I'm like, this is fake. And the left eats it up because they want the story of Trump to be a moron. This is PR 101. This is like entry level public relations. Do you guys remember Tucker Max?
Yep.
Yeah, we had him on the
Tucker
show.
Max bought a billboard for his book, and then he was working with Ryan Holiday. And the story goes, I don't know if exactly all the credit goes to Ryan Holiday for this, because I think there was an argument over it, but Tucker Max had a book. I think it was Ryan Holiday. They defamed their own billboard. Then the next morning, they called a radio station and said, yo, someone graffitied up this billboard. They organized their own protests. That way the news would report protests had started. It's like Kevin Smith went outside during the filming of Dogma and gave interviews at the protests of his own film. This is really low-tier basic PR manipulation stuff. Hey, Lupin, who's a journalist we hate? Get Goldberg, he'll do it. Write down exactly what the message needs to be. He'll publish it. No one's going to get fired. The Democrats are saying Hegseth should be fired. He's not even the one who started the group chat.
It wouldn't be.
That doesn't make sense.
It would be the guy. If anybody got fired, it'd be whoever added the journalist, and that's only if it was a.
They're saying it might have been an intern. In which case, there's the scapegoat. Trump's message is espoused by The Atlantic to everybody. They talk about it for a week. Everybody on the right sees J.D. Vance saying, we can't do this. We're reluctant. Pete Hegseth saying, we have no choice. Then reminding the American people, don't worry, Egypt and Europe must remunerate on this. I'm like, that is Donald Trump giving a speech at a rally. All of his talking points. The talking points before was Trump should not bomb Yemen. Now it's, look at this deep, thoughtful communication. The statement from the spokesperson was hilarious. This appears to be a genuine communication of deep and thoughtful communications on a military strike or something like that. Anyway, that's just my thoughts. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. That's just me. My friends, smash the like button. Share the show with everyone you know. We got that uncensored call-in show coming up in about a minute. You don't want to miss it. Go to rumble.com/Timcast IRL and use promo code TIM10 to get $10 off an annual membership to watch our Green Room podcast, feature-length documentaries, and the uncensored call-in show. Now, if you want to call into the show, you've got to join the Discord server. That's our community. That's at timcast.com. They're separate. So the Rumble Premium is where you get to watch everybody from Steven Crowder, Russell Brand, Dave Rubin, et cetera, et cetera. But if you want to join our community, go to timcast.com, click join us, and we hope to see you there. Follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. Cheryl, do you want to shout anything out?
Well, I'd love for people to look at my national bestseller, 5 stars on Amazon, Follow the Science. All the proceeds from these things that I do go to independent reporting causes. I give ION awards for independent off-narrative reporting to professionals and at 2 colleges because in my industry, and I judge the Emmys every year, a lot of times what wins is not the original good kind of reporting that I think we need to be encouraging. So if you want to support that kind of stuff, and look up my show, Full Measure After Hours.
What is it, the Follow the Science about?
It's about how sort of explaining behind the scenes with anecdotes and documentation and citations, how we have had this explosion of chronic health disorders for 20 years that we all recognize that our doctors pretend not to notice or don't notice, either one's equally as bad, but for the opportunity that they have to try to treat it with expensive treatments. But there's a big story behind.
Right on.
Follow the science. All right, well, check it out on Amazon or wherever, anywhere books are sold. I'm Ian Crossland, and follow me on the internet at Ian Crossland. I do videos from time to time, sometimes daily, and I did one on the pyramids yesterday. So check it out at Ian Crossland on YouTube, X, all the social networks. Find me, hit me up. See you later.
I am Phil That Remains on Twix. I'm Phil That Remains Official on Instagram. The band is All That Remains. Our new record dropped on January 31st. It's entitled Anti-Fragile. You can check it out on YouTube, Apple Music, Amazon Music, Pandora, Spotify, and Deezer. Don't forget The Left Lane is for Crime.
We will see you all over at the uncensored call-in show, rumble.com/Timcast IRL in about 30 seconds. Thanks for hanging out.